Welcome, everyone. This is a meeting of the Cohasset Select Board. We're gonna get started. The roll call.
Chris Flex here.
Jack Creighton here.
Ellen Mar present. Jean Haley Dibble present. We're gonna start with a pledge of allegiance. All welcome to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great. 7 o'clock, we're 1 minute ahead of schedule. Are there any comments at this time?
Yes, I have a comment.
All right, you may come up here.
Want me to sit?
Yes, please. If you could introduce yourself.
My name's Charlie Clancy, and I live at 103 Forest Avenue. And I have a objection. And I'd like to receive a couple of comments. We came with a long-time resident of the way for a long time. And this had been away for 3 months since I've been back. Before I left, there was a town meeting. I didn't address the town hall. When I left, the news was that the town hall would remain. That's my side. Having returned a week ago, there's no newspaper, at least that I read it. It's hard to get any news, but as an old man, I'm a proud member of the discussion group that they hold upstairs for elderly people. I know. And anyway, at that meeting, I heard, I guess it's hearsay, that there was discussions about leasing on a short-term basis or temporary basis, 1 Pleasant Street to service the town hall. And that's my stuff. So just to give a little breadth and maybe a little history to it, you can stomach it. I'll try to make it short, maybe 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But
A
anyway,
few minutes.
I would say that the Cohasset Town Hall, if not the best, is one of the best. One of the best commons in all of New England. It's really amazing. The way it's laid out, there's a charm, it's down to scale. It's lined with really attractive and stately building. It has the little detail pieces. Beautiful. Elegant flagpole. You come up to the south from there, there's a meeting house. Built 1747. Go a little further south, you see the frog. Go across the street, you see the Second Congregational Church. Next to it, you see Present Town Hall. Further south, you see the magnificent relatively new church, because it's a Lutheran church. So the Carolyn, that's probably as fine as any in the country. People come to the town, comment on the evening. You look at the harbor. You really see the common first. Maybe the only common in New England, anywhere, that overlooks the Atlantic Ocean is next to the little harbor. My favorite tidal estuary in the whole world. I'm not airline all over the world. You know, maybe I'm biased. The towns, you people, oh no, for taking the time and the effort to do appreciate that. Now, having said all those things, nice things about the
I'll
aesthetics.
give you 1 minute.
You said it.
Sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're on a
But-
schedule.
Okay, and we run a town, history, tradition, legacy, history, all entwined. That town hall was built in 1857. Before that, where the meeting house was, that's where the town really ran its government. Before the meeting house was built, they said there's another building that wasn't meeting. So it went from one meeting house to Preston, incredible meeting house, moved across the town. in 1857. They didn't go downtown, they didn't go to the harbor, they didn't go to the depot. They stayed right there on the center of the town. The common. And they built the town hall. Over the years, they modified, I think in 1879, 89, the early eighties, they did something. Most significantly in, 1928, they put offices in the town hall. They dropped the meeting area, which was on the second floor, the first floor. In 1982, they built the addition. And that was led by, that study group was led by Bert Pratt. Well, I tell you, he loves the town as much as you guys do. Whole family's been there probably since the Mayflower. They didn't decide to put the town hall at any other place other than the precious common on its own. So that common is not only a beautiful common, but it's a working common. In other words, the town government, the legacy, the history of the town government is there. And I think if we're thinking about maybe it's wise because the HVAC was good, maybe there's mold or the roof is bad, let's move it. No, I would say the tangible outplays and the intention outplays the tangible. The history. If you come to a town, I bet there's 1,000 towns, 10,000 towns in the country would like to say that our seat of government been there since 1857 on the place that gives government dignity and respect, tradition. A lot of places will go out to something like 3A and build a new town hall. No, you stay where it is and you make do. So my point is that let's keep it where it's at. And now just two other points I want to raise, and they're technical.
You have many people. behind
Oh,
us.
okay, yeah, but I think this is important. So, I think it's- so, you're the board of selectmen, you're the executive body of the town. I'm a legislator because I'm a citizen of the town. When I show up at town meeting, I'm a legislator. The legislative body, of the town meeting has said, keep the town hall where it is, work with it. But maybe some of the reasons I said, I bet you if Bert Pratt was still alive, he'd be saying the same thing. He'd be right back there, patting you back. So as far as the technicality of, let's say, moving the town hall is what I've heard. I haven't seen it in print, it's no, just people talking to me. If you're gonna lease property to serve as a town hall, you need me as a legislator, the town meeting, just me, I'm one of many, to approve that. So I would say if it is, if it's on the docket to do, I don't believe not technically by statute or bylaw, actually statute, because the enumerated powers of the town meeting, the enumerated powers for the board of selectmen are all laid out.
So-
And one of the things that the town meeting does is approve all funding, all appropriations and all line item transfers. So I would say technically, if you wish to do it, that you can, but if you wish to do it, I hope you don't. Because once you move it, it's hard to get, it's like put toothpaste back in the tube, you can't do it. So I would say, again, I believe by statute, you can, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's loopholes, I hope you don't, I believe you can. Number two, I hope you don't
Can't,
want
what
to
you
do.
say?
But pardon me,
You can't move it,
I would say you can't, I'm not a lawyer.
saying you cannot.
I'm saying you can't, unless the legislature or the town meeting approves it. You can do that, but that's
Sir,
possible.
sir, I'm gonna ask you to wrap up your remarks.
Yeah, I've
And-
done.
And I would invite you to stay actually at 7:55 when we're gonna talk about town hall.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's
talk about
great.
the actual facts, not sort of the rumors that are
Oh, okay, yeah.
incorrect that have been
Okay, well,
circulated.
maybe I'm wrong, but I thought
Yeah,
it's
no,
time for
but
me
thank
to
you.
make a comment.
Yeah, thank you for your comments.
I'll be back at
Appreciate it.
7:55. Thank you
Yep,
very much.
yep, we'll be
Thanks,
here.
that's.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of fun stuff between then and now.
All right, so we're gonna move on to license and permits. I know, I think we have some folks in the audience. Is that right? Is Chief Quigley there?
Yeah.
All right, the first two things we have up are Split Rock Social. Do we have anyone, from Split Rock, Aaron or Ryan? It's Aaron Herman.
So who's the other name?
And Ryan? You said-
Ryan Hilton.
Yeah.
He'll
Yeah.
promote them as well.
Okay, so before the board is a renewal affidavit for Split Rock Social. Let's take the first one first. Is there anything?
Hey guys,
Hey, Ryan.
And they're just looking around there for another year.
Okay,
They have the tent.
No, the tent is not.
Okay.
This is just the only seasonal renewal for the town.
okay.
It's an annual.
Okay.
Would you mind also promoting Wes Balzer, our general manager, whose name is on the liquor license, please?
Yeah, that's
was just
fine. I don't think we're gonna probably need to do anything significant. But I could be wrong. Is there anything, are there any questions the board has of a renewal? Yes, Ellen.
Not relative to Split Rock specifically, the license class is seasonal, and I couldn't find any definition of what seasonal meant in the liquor regulations or.
It means only open for a period of time during the year that's defined by the board. Right, often it's a summer, in this case, it's, I want to say, April, right? I'm afraid I don't.
Yeah, we went through all different, depending on the weather, and then for certain holidays, it would be open on the Monday. Holiday was on a Monday, and so the terms of the existing license, I believe, are weather-based in part because it's an outdoor.
It's also only in warmer, it's only in the warmer
Yeah.
season, because it.
Well, I recall us extending it
Yeah,
a
it's
few
December.
times into November or December because it was unseasonal. I just was looking for the definition, and we should have a finite definition of what seasonal means that's fair and equal to all applicants.
I think it, and again, I don't want to get too far out of this. I believe it kind of depends on what the applicant asked for, what's willing to give. This is the first time anyone's ever done this. All the other licenses, at least up to this point, were restaurant or inn or club based. This is the first
Okay.
one that was actually outdoors.
All right, so
see-
maybe I can regroup with you later.
Yeah, you
and-
should.
And we
I-
can define what seasonal is and put it into our regulations.
Yeah, and that's,
Okay.
yes, it's not in our regs per se, because we didn't have anything like it before.
Right.
But if this is gonna happen then regularly, it's something.
So are there any further questions the board has as to this license? Would anyone like to make a motion to renew the license based on the current terms?
I will make that motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we have a specific hour extension requesting from Split Rock, requesting to extend its hours on June 23rd from 12 to 6 p.m. To 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it sounds like it's an extra hour to accommodate the Cohasset Triathlon. Is that right, Ryan? That's what I,
That's correct.
all right. Does anyone want to discuss? All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve the extension at 1 hour,
June
June
23rd.
23rd.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please vote aye.
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 All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, good luck, thank you. All right, now we are going on to our next request. 3 beach minimum half marathon. Do we have anyone from there on? This is a annual event at this point. Hi, chief.
Hey there. Yeah, this is an annual event. I'm not sure, is John on, John Donlin? Yep. John is the race director and he can talk about the event, but it's a recurring event. I think we're on about 10 years now, John.
Yeah, this is the 10th year. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's okay with the chair. Go for it.
You'd like to add, Mr. Donlin?
No, just we're really pardon the pun, but we're running it back from the last year and the last few years. Really, no changes to the number of participants or the course. Just updating the date. We always shoot for the last Saturday in September, and that this year that's September 28th.
Okay, great. any discussion or questions from the board? No, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the Three Beach minimum half marathon application for September 28th, 2020?
I'll make that.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All right, we have the CY, and good luck with
All right, thank you.
We have the CYBSA annual parade for April 27th, 2024. Any discussion here? This is an annual event. I don't know if, is it Vince who does it or not Vince?
I'm not sure who's in the audience, but this is pretty low speed, annual event. And the organizers have been working with the traffic safety officer. Again, this is relatively quick. It's 8 a.m. Probably takes about a half hour.
Okay, I think we're all familiar with the CYBSA annual event. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve it?
I'll make it.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are moving on now to the application for the memorial bench, which I believe is tabled at this point because the applicant cannot join us due to illness. Okay, we'll take that up shortly when he is ready. The 4th of July event / presentation. Is Craig McClellan in the audience?
Yes.
Okay, could you promote him? Thank you.
Out there.
He's not there?
He's not there, he's muted.
Okay. Oh, I know he's in the middle of a school committee meeting right now too. So the request is, I'll just summarize it for the board. You saw the letter in the packet. Last year, we had the fireworks at the 4th of July. Hey, Craig.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm just multitasking here.
Yeah, no problem. I was just doing a brief overview, but you're welcome to do it if you want, Craig.
Sure. Thanks for having me. We're looking to do a reboot of basically the same exact event that we had last year on July 2nd at the Sandy Beach, 4th of July fireworks celebration. The police are in support of it. It went well last year. And I think a lot of people are aware of that. I think the entire select board was aware of the event. And, so we're just basically at this point, the critical question is coming up with the deposit funds for the vendor, significantly the barge, because it's a barge show. So you have to put down a deposit for that and for the fireworks, just to sort of reserve that spot. That's $22,500. And then from there, it's a July 2nd show. So we could budget for it in the future budget. I'm also planning on, like I did last year, doing some fundraising. I think it'll be a little bit easier this year because everyone saw the event or attended the event last year and saw what it was. And I think there'll be a lot of support for doing it again. But I feel like this is a critical year. If we want to try and make it a tradition, the second time around is always pretty critical, from that perspective. I think the first year was critical just to show everyone what was possible and what it would be. But, the tide will be a bit high again this year, but it was last year as well, and there was ample space for everyone. I think that the police we're already starting to talk about, the plans and stuff, and the shuttle buses will run again. I think the police may have some tweaks on how we do that, but I leave that to Chief Quigley and his crew. I'm happy to answer any questions or add any other information. Again, thanks for having me here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Chief Quigley, is there anything you want to add on your end?
No, it was a great event last year, and we can definitely make this work. We did an after actions report last year, so we get some ideas relative to making better use of the parking lot for handicap parkers and things like that. But the wheels are turning, and we're on track to have another great event if it's approved.
So it sounds like the board right now is faced with a question of what funds, if any, can we devote to helping put a deposit down to help the event? There were sort of two issues that I was looking at from a funding standpoint in terms of we have a limited amount of ARPA funds left. We have at least 22,000. One of the things we were contemplating was using some of the money maybe on the Collins Center report, which we now know they can't get to anyway until the summer. So that's out. The other thing, and maybe this is a question for you, Craig, is, you know, one of the things candidly in the back of my mind is the schools, when we're trying to meet the budget this year, are we gonna have to be mindful of our limited ARPA funds and trying to fill that gap that way?
I think that the creative solutions we fashioned with the town are from different, and maybe Mr. Senior will speak to this a little bit more, but I don't think ARPA is envisioned as being the primary source to assist the schools with its shortfall. I mean, again, I'm speaking a little bit out of turn because I'm no longer chair of that committee. I have not been the school committee. I'm vice chair, so I'm not directly involved with the finance discussions with the town manager and assistant town managers. The things are related to me, you know, secondhand. So I think Mr. Senior could probably speak a little bit more to that. But my understanding this, from what I've heard, I don't think this is going to conflict with the ways in which we envision helping the schools, but I could be wrong.
Chris, what do you think? Can we spare 22K in ARPA funds? You know, in light of what we're trying to sort of balance.
The short answer is yes, because it was really targeted for the last chunk of it was targeted for the lease and all of that, which is not happening right now. Plus M10, it's been a little one-off. So I've used it for these one-off kind of things, and I think it's probably the best kind of use for it. We are planning to put money aside in next year's budget as a one-time cost, just to have a slot available. And also in terms of staff, so we didn't get internal. So Chief Quigley will have, should the board say yes, Chief Quigley will have a small staff committee of Chief Dockeray, Chief Quigley, Lori, and Kevin will help. I'll cover all that. You know, the permitting, because there is really the biggest stuff on the town side is the details and also the permitting process, because you have to get approval from is it the port, what's he called, the port master or something of Boston Harbor?
The captain of the port. We've already been in contact and everything is doable. We reached out to them today and we checked with the fireworks company and they'll handle, you know, notifying the Federal Aviation Administration. And you know, we have a path forward.
Okay, so it sounds like the question before the board is whether we are willing to deploy 22,000 in ARPA funds to put down the deposit on the fireworks, which it sounds like we can do, notwithstanding other stuff going on. And then it sounds like we have some room to continue to try to budget the remainder if we so choose to, you know, with the ongoing budget discussions we're having. So.
I would
Questions?
make a motion to approve. It was a great event last year.
No, the only thing I'd ask is you round it up to 25 just to be safe.
Okay.
Because
I would make a motion to approve spending $25,000 but going into the event last year. Firm believer.
Ellen, do you have?
I just had a question. Is the Sandy Beach Association on board with this now?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
The town controls the parking lot, that is their beach. I know the conversations are continuing. I have not been directly involved. So I know that I know they expressed some concerns. I know that Craig is working.
So I could amend that pending Sandy Beach approval, association approval.
Any other questions?
Is it worth asking Mr. McClellan, if he can tell us how that conversation is going with the Sandy Beach Association?
Hey, Craig, how's the Sandy Beach Association conversation going?
So the Sandy Beach Association was unwilling to support it as an organization. They said they support it as individuals. I guess they have concerns about it conflicting with their fundraising efforts. I tried to implore them to utilize the event as a major fundraising effort, which I thought would make sense, but that doesn't seem to get a lot of traction with them. So which is up to them. I mean, it's their prerogative. But so the SBA as a body is not in support, but the members expressed, I guess, their individual support for it.
So they're not in support, but they're not voting against it.
They're not. It's kind of the same thing as last year. I mean, they sort of like, you know, do what you will, but we're not really assisting or being part of it or sponsoring it.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
any further discussion or questions? All right, so Paul, you have a motion.
I have a motion.
Would anyone like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for 25,000 in ARPA funds for the event. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. So Craig, we'll continue the discussion, but you've got the 25 to start.
Thank you, guys. It's going to be a great event. So we'll get right on that. And the July 2nd date is already held with that same vendor. So thank you. It should be a really fun event again. Thanks so much for doing this.
Okay,
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Quickly.
All right. Thanks, Chief. And thanks to our police department. Without them, it just simply wouldn't be possible. I can say that to 100% certainty.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. We can talk overtime in the future. All right, audit. Here we go. Thank you for joining us. Powers, right? Yes.
You have this electronically, but it's not. So you have this electronically, but this is, no supply, it's not copies.
Oh, thank you.
If you're rushing, if you want. It's two. This is the federal one, that's not from anything, this is the, that's right.
Less and less of these would be. Economically, yeah, policy.
Yeah.
Friendly.
Well, they do have, at least have it electronic.
Yeah, I know, they just, it's a lot less than we used to do. We used to do 35, 40 copies for everybody, and now they were giving up to the select board and they're happy.
I'll hand it over to you if you want to start, you want to summarize.
Yeah.
Or highlight any findings for us.
Okay, all right, thank you again. I'm Jim Powers from, it was Powers and Sullivan. We merged on February 1st to Markham LLP, an actual firm. Just to let you know, it was just something that made a lot of sense for both us and actually our clients because of a variety of reasons. But now we have unbelievable resources behind us as opposed to just a 35-person firm. We have all kinds of things, but continuity is very important, meaning that I'll still be your partner in charge of engagement. Jess will still be, you know, the manager, now director. And so the same people will be here. We just happen to join the larger firm. And this is true for all our almost 200 Massachusetts municipal clients as we go through that. But we finished this report sometime in late December. And it's just time now to get before the board. Like usual, what I'd like to do is thank Chris and his finance staff along with the school for providing a good set of financial statements, underlying documents, et cetera, as we went through, and the last explained well. Talking earlier before the meeting, and we're going to start and have our planning meeting for next year to make sure that everything goes smoothly again this year. So we'll be doing that in the spring. One of the things that you'll see is that usually we issue 3 different reports. One is on your financial statements, that's a thick one. The thin one is on the federal grants and compliance, it's called part of the single audit. And the third one is a management letter. You don't see a management letter. You're not perfect, but we take a look and study all your internal controls. We test everything not only at the end of the year, but throughout the year to make sure things are being reconciled on a timely basis. The internal reports that the select board may receive during the year are accurate. The ledgers are, we had no adjustments to the ledgers. We had no findings, both at the school level and at the town level. when we first came in, we had some good size management letter points, but over the last several years, through Chris's leadership and the select board's support, it pretty much been eliminated. We don't have any, what we call material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, so I think it's a job well done as you go through that. If you want in the future, we're still going to do the same thing at the key financial areas. We'll be all over the treasurer, the school, we're gonna be all over the accountant's office. We do a lot of work on the budgets and make sure that they tie in between the votes and what's on the ledges, so, and everything's there. But if you had some places that would like us to do a site visit, sometimes it's like, all right, would you mind going out and taking a look at this particular operation, just to make sure that they have good internal controls over cash receipts, et cetera. That's part of it built into the contract, so Chris, if you want to do that in our planning, you know.
We've done that in the past. We've actually had them go off and look at things like, it actually led us to the revolving funds we now use. The senior center was keeping all their nice ledger notes in a nice shoebox. And it wasn't quite that. So we cleaned that up, and you know, one of the things that it also led to was the bags. We used to keep those all on our public works guys, and I think that inventory control, so we have a company that supplies those directly, so we don't keep stocking. So we can order directly from the company as needed. So, but those are more processing. So we have the auditors come in just a few, just to make sure we're doing things right. It's usually outside of pockets, but it can also be.
So the two reports you have in front of you, one is the thin one here. And this is a requirement by the federal government. It's a schedule of federal awards. Basically, if you spend over $750,000 of federal money, either receiving it direct from the feds or through the state, you're required to do a compliance on it. Okay, and that's what this is. And there's a million different rules on this, but like in the past, a lot of times there's a lot of school grants, school bonds, special education, things like that. They do a great job over there to be in compliance, and there's no findings. You've got a good a report as you can get on that. One of the things I obviously we're speaking about is the use of ARPA funds, and I know you spend a bunch of it, but to the calendar year 2024, you can carry money over and spend it in 2025 and 26, but it's a lot stricter than people realize. And so my recommendation is to use that money so it's all spent by the end of calendar year 2024. If it looks like you're not going to be able to, give me a call and I can really go over the rules with you and what you have to do in order to carry over those funds with a specific purpose into 2025 or 26, so you don't lose them. Okay, this is something that we've been telling all our clients. You're really ahead of the game compared to a lot of our other clients who have a lot of money still left to spend as part of that. But just hearing you bring that up, I just thought I'd focus on that and make sure you don't wait for the last second. But if you do wait for the last second, I have ways that you can spend it and still be in compliance and do what you need to do. Any, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Apologies for interrupting. The compliance with the ARPA award, if I recall correctly, Norfolk County hired Ms. Levin to do a lot of sort of a pre-audit before it got to, before we submitted the awards, which was part of the rationale for why they get 3%.
Right, they were the attorneys, and then they hired Clifton Larson, Allen, et cetera.
Yeah,
It was part of that, so they give the initial, but the final approval
Yeah.
is with Norfolk. So the people they
It gets
hired,
back to-
it's a recommendation saying this expenditure that someone's using this for appears to be in compliance with all the ARPA rules and regulations. And then they present that to the to Norfolk County, and they make the final decision. So yes, and so that the earlier you do that, the better off, because the other thing too is Norfolk, along with the other South Shore counties that are doing this, want to make sure that they spend all their money. And so if it looks like the community does not have a project, then I don't know what exactly they would do. There's a chance they would obviously make sure that you knew about it as a community, saying, you need to be able to use this and get this approved soon, or we're gonna have to reallocate the money. Because one of the major objectives for what they did was to make sure that it all was spent, and we don't want to have money that's been allocated to any community reallocated to someone else, but, so again, just make sure you stay on top of that as you go through.
Are there any questions the board has? I have 2 questions, but I'll give other people a chance to ask. One question I've always had is overtime. That's an expense that we don't bake into our budget, but we know we have it every year. It's recurring, it's variable depending on the issues presented. We previously had a blue ribbon commission that tried to assess overtime versus a full-time FTE, hiring full-time, and there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
And the sort of public safety space. Setting aside the pros and the cons of hiring an additional FTE, or, should we be baking that into our budget because it's a known recurring expense, or is the current way we handle it, which is through our reserve funds at the end of the year and free cash?
I mean, it's, the way you've been doing it is okay, everybody's trying to live within their budget and inside the budget, depends how you, in effect, vote the budget, because that becomes not a legal level of compliance. You pretty much, I believe, voted by department, so you have, okay, police departments, this. You can put that in there as a, for an account to do that, to give you a better sense of what you could expect during the year, that will then leave the reserve funds on there. So it's kind of like a budgetary preference.
Okay.
The way I look at it is when I take a look at your budget to actuals on the financial statements, I see pretty much turnbacks everywhere as you go through that. So some of it may have been because you used the reserve fund to do that, but no one's overspending their budget to a degree that really would affect you. And it looks like most of the time you work this out, so you're either making a surplus for the year on a budgetary basis, or you're breaking even as you go through. And you kind of budget a loss at the beginning of the year, recast, et cetera, but you maintain budgetary control. That's one of the reasons in the other report, if you take a look at that, you've been steadily building your fund balance / free cash as you go through in stabilization fund balances over the last 10 years. And the big report here, this 10-year schedule on the annual comprehensive financial report that shows that you went from, 10 years ago, a combined stabilization fund and general fund balance, governmental funds, from, I don't think it was like 5 or 6 million. In the last few years, you've been hanging around $15 million. So for a budget of $55 million, that's really in a pretty good place. And that tells you, and tells me, as an independent looking at it, you have pretty good budgetary controls. Your budgetary process is what's allowing you to provide services to the communities as you deem with fit for the year, but also being fiscally conservative to make sure that you weren't spending money you didn't have, or utilizing all your free cash that you may have used to balance the budget, but you're not spending money you don't have. Maybe that's a better way to say it. You're not, some places hope they get a great year of, say, estimated receipts coming in, and it doesn't come in, and all of a sudden you're in trouble because that creates a lot. But from what I see here, just from the numbers, I don't attend all the budget meetings and stuff like that, but just from the numbers, I see a steadily progressing fund balance along with the stable fund balance over the last several years. with the ability to use several different type of stabilization, fundamental stabilization, capital stabilization, special education stabilization funds. And they add up to a good amount of money. That helps answer your question.
I did, thank you. One thing we often, well, not often, but we hear from
Okay.
constituents is concern about free cash.
Yeah.
And how it, for some represents overtaxation, for others it represents, maybe we could be spending more in certain areas that we're not. I was hoping you could share your views on free cash, which we know the DOR recommends we account for at a certain amount, which we have been doing.
Yeah. And so there's, I look at this more of a long term. Yeah, somebody could say, oh, you've overtaxed us, okay? This is what happened, but disasters happen as you go through. Years ago, 10, 15 years ago, like Springfield, Munson, got hit by a tornado, okay? They got hit by a tornado, there was incredible damage out there. Cohasset, you're on the water. There's a lot of things that can happen that are unexpected with a hurricane or storm that makes it up here. Well, I'd rather be dealing from a position of strength, meaning that financial strength, to have in reserves for those stabilization, rainy day funds, but also for free cash. So you can do things that come up. I look at it that way. You could reduce taxes for that, but then is that the risk you want to take a look at? The other thing that has a big effect on it is your bond rating. Because the financial condition is looked at by the rating agencies, and it's a big component of your rating. So I'm not
Free
sure.
cash.
Free cash, yes, because that's, free cash is, unencumbered funds that you have in the general fund. Or the enterprise funds, they have their own certified retained earnings that they have that they go through, but realistically, the general fund, they want to see that financial flexibility. And they want to see that consistent fund balance over the years. And if for whatever reason, you had to tap into it, say you had a coastal disaster type of thing, you had to spend $3 million. Well, you've got a several $1 million capital, general stabilization fund. And what they usually like to see, if you have to tap into a rainy day fund, you would then also be putting money aside to build it back up. The other thing the town has been doing, and you're doing a better job than I'd probably say 90% of the communities in Massachusetts, you've recognized that you have some unfunded liabilities. Obviously, you're part of Norfolk County's pension system, and they're funded pretty well. One of the higher funded retirement systems out there, for our county system. But the other post-employment benefits fund, you established the OPEB trust funds years ago. You get over $6 million in there. You're about 20+% funded right now. Most places are 4 or 5 if they're lucky. You contribute, you had been contributing about, I think you started off at like $300,000, and over the last 7 or 8 years, you've been putting in probably close to $500,000. And this year, I think it was $750,000. I'd have to look at my notes, but I think I remember $750,000 or something in there is what you contributed. And you're using a discount rate that's 6.75%. But you still have an unfunded liability of about $21 million. Well, you really don't have free cash if you were a business. The reason you're allowed to do what you do as opposed to a corporation. Okay, there's all kinds of ERISA laws for what you have to do when you guarantee your employees a pension or an OPEB, which is guaranteed by law as they go through. Is because Cohasset's not going out of business. It's illegal to go bankrupt for a community in Massachusetts. A company can close. Cohasset is here. So you will have the ability, even though it may take you a while, to fund that liability and meet that obligation to your employees when they retire. That's part of why you're going through and you're looking at that and have a systematic plan in order to eliminate that OPEB liability. So if you have $5 million worth of free cash, you get $28 million worth of unfunded liabilities for your pension. You get $21 million worth of obligations that could be funded right now. On that, so all of a sudden you have $50 million. One could argue on a full accrual basis, which is part of these financial statements, that you're 45 million in the hole. Okay? Because that's a liability that you should have funded 100%, and that's what a company has to do. And they can't use a discount rate that's 6.75% like you're using there. They have to use a risk-free rate when they figure that out, and so the liability is a lot higher.
What rate would they generally have to use?
On
A discount rate?
It's like 2 to 3% usually on the commercial side. You know, so they take a look at like 20-year AA rated government bonds. And that's usually the benchmark that most places use. But most companies got rid of the defined benefit plans. And now they're in the defined contribution, 401ks, et cetera. So they got rid of the liability by that. The only way you can get rid of that liability is for the state to change the law, which I don't think is going to happen for those two particular liabilities, but you're allowed to use a different rate and have an effective, what you expect over time to earn as a rate of return. Obviously, there's fluctuations that you go through. Well, on average, they're saying you're going to be able to earn 6.75%. And that's one of the lower rates that are out there. That
If you were talking to a relatively sophisticated, but not in your business, how would you explain in layman's terms, people who are undoubtedly all listening to us?
I know there's probably a lot of finance people.
Yeah,
I know a few.
But how would you summarize what the discount rate is and what it affects?
So the discount rate is, it for governments too, the discount rate matches your expected rate of return on your investments. So if you have a liability that goes out to the future and someone retires, so you have a 30-year-old public works form. Well, there's an actuary that's out there. It says, okay, that worker is 30 years old, they're going to retire at 65. So you have a 35-year working window in order to put aside enough money to pay for their retirement once they do that. So you don't have any outflows until they're 65, obviously, unless they get disabled with a few other things. And so what the actuary does is says, okay, I've got a 35-year window for this particular employee. And they say, okay, when you're 65, we expect that your pension benefit will be this because you'll get raises for all these years. And then at that point in time, they'll say, all right, what's the expected lifetime of that person who's now 30? That will be 35 years in the future. And so, you've got like a 70, 80-year window. And how many years do we have to pay that off? In order to find out what you need to have in the bank today, in order to get to that point, they discount that by saying, okay, I expect to earn 6.75%. If I put $100 in the bank today, it's going to be worth, $10,000 in 35 years, and that's going to be used then as an annuity to pay that off. So there's not a simple
but that's
answer to it.
That's one of the clearer ones, explanations, and I'm somewhat in the business, so I understand
I figured
that.
as much, yeah.
But I want our
listeners to, these citizens.
our citizens,
Yeah.
our legislatures, as we heard
So,
earlier.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of laws that wrap around this that are Massachusetts general laws for both the OPEB and the pension. The pension, it's a requirement that you fund that. And you have to fully fund that by 2004. So that's Norfolk County's job that does it for all of the member units, and they're doing a good job. As I said, they're one of the higher funded systems that are out there. It's one of the county systems. For OPEB, the insurance, it's all up to the community, so you all have, but it's not required that you fully fund that by any particular day. It was brought up to the legislature, oh, probably about 10 years ago, and it never made it through, so it's up to you what you want to do, and that's why you're ahead of the game, because you realize they had that liability. You legally, you didn't have to put a cent away. You did. But sound business practices said you should. And
I have a question about that. So we had some meetings ago, our chair and vice chair of the PEP committee came and gave an update. And we had been hearing for years that the unfunded liability had been growing. You know, it's, I think when we started it, it was at 32 million, and then, you know, another year it was 36. It got up to, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, 45, 48 million, something. 70 million?
I thought they had only 26.
No, I know. So, but my question is, when they came to present, and I think it might have been after a town meeting, they indicated that the liability had been reduced dramatically because the discount rate was at 6.75, and I think it had been lower. So my question is, as the discount rate went up to reduce the liability, is there any inherent danger or risk that the discount rate will go down and the liability will increase again?
And so on page 89, this report, it addresses exactly what it's talking about, when the law changed
Yeah,
and when and when the governmental accounting standard boards, it says this promulgates the rules of how you have to account and disclose various information to governments. And it's specific to governments, they require a 10-year schedule. And so if you take a look at column 1, which June 13, 2017 was the first year, you were required to disclose that. And one of the things that I put in, which isn't required, is exactly what you said, is that I put the discount rate down below. Because there's a sensitivity analysis. There's a huge swing in the liability based on the discount rate. If you go up 1% or down 1% in the notes to the financial statements, it will tell you how much the liability would change based on exactly what you said. So it's not an exact science. You know, this is an estimate. So you started off with a liability of 41,167,775 in 2017. And it got up to, I don't know who said it, but they were right, it was $72,400,000 in 2020. But the discount rate, if you go back then, because you haven't demonstrated at that point in time enough to the actuary that you're going to continue that funding schedule. And so being conservative, the actuary looked at it, we agreed with it, that you're better off at this point in time not to overstate how well you're doing, you know, and increase the discount rate. But until you show that, you know, the select board, the government and management has committed to make that particular funding schedule. Once they do that, then they can take an account. So if you go back to the discount rates, if you go back to June 30th, 2020, the discount rate was 2.28. If you go back and you look at treasuries back then, okay, you weren't making a lot of money on anything, but that was the basis back in 2020. What can you get for a treasury today? You know, you get a 20-year, you know, you can get a 1-year treasury for, you know, 5.3 or so, or whatever it is, you know.
I want to buy some.
Yeah, I bought a bunch.
Okay.
And so the 6.75% is still on the low end for those that are fully funded as they go through. If you take a look at Norfolk County, they're using the 7.75% discount rate. And they've been achieving that, and you're better off with your discount rate being realistic to show where you are. But the financial statements will show, and if you want to take a look at the page, I can quickly look it up, but they'll show what it is at 7.75%, which is 1% higher. And all of a sudden, it goes down by 25%. And then it'll show you at 5.75%. So you have the numbers there. But they know the volatility is there for that. In addition to that, the health trend rates also is an estimate by the actuary. And that has the same sensitivity analysis back there. How much is health insurance going to go up each year? So it's not an exact science. We would have a problem if you were putting in 8% or even 7.75%. You don't have a long track record with this. You don't have as much money as Norfolk County does that can diversify the portfolio investments. So but this is a good schedule to address exactly what you're looking at.
Okay, Mr. Powers, I'm sorry to interject here, but we appreciate all of your work and your efforts to help the town. We've got a bunch of folks, people running a little behind schedule as usual. So thank you.
I'm disappointed. This is my life.
I know.
I think it's
Thank you.
exciting.
And thank you, Chris, for running tight ship and having no material weaknesses that we need to address. So I appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
again.
Thank you.
All right, I'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Take care, all.
All right. Safe harbor, sorry, I know you all.
See if you guys want to be accountants when they grow up.
Hopefully, we'll start with opioid and then we'll do the ambassador presentation. So it's best if one person, does it just because of the mic, can only pick up one person.
It's just me. For
Okay.
opioid.
Okay. Or one at a time.
All right. Good. So I'm Nicole Blaschi, the program director of Safe Harbor Class Coalition, but tonight I'm representing the opioid abatement committee. And I'll get into who is on that committee in just a moment, but for those who are at home, here, the opioid abatement funds, a lot of questions that have been coming to us are why are we getting them? So just a brief overview that every municipality in the Commonwealth, we're receiving funds. We either have and will receive funds from the settlement where, opioid manufacturers, distributors, pharmacies, they're all being held accountable for violations for the flood of inappropriate prescriptions. So, and that's what's led to the opioid crisis. So Cohasset today, starting, I think it was in November 2022, we got a lump sum. And you can see on the slide that right now we have about $75,000 in Cohasset. We're not going to get $75,000 every year. The way that municipalities receive their funds, it all depends on the size of your community. And it all fluctuates with each settlement. So going forward, we'll probably get about $25,000 to $35,000 annually. And it's projected for about 10 years now. It changes almost every day, and there's a lot of settlements still being completed. But it could be 10 years, it could be prolonged, it could be indefinitely. So that's kind of a question mark right now, but it is for many years to come that we're going to be receiving these funds. On the next slide, there are requirements for how these funds are utilized, and they have asked that municipalities have people of lived experience on their committees and all perspectives, which we do have, and you'll see just first responders, those who are working within the treatment, prevention, and the opioid. And then you'll see here, there's the 8 listed. Sorry, I'm going back to the other slide really quick. The meetings that this group has, we're supposed to discuss these strategies that you see here listed, and it's all unique to your community. So the next slide now. Sorry, Kevin. This is who we have sitting on our committee right now. And these are all the perspectives that we felt were appropriate. And
Quick question on the committee.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be an official government committee?
No.
Okay.
Does not have to
Okay.
be.
Because I don't think we've charged any.
No, so I'm using the term committee.
Just want to make sure we're complying. with the
Yes.
terms, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So The group that you form, and it doesn't have to be a formal group, but we just want to be intentional about what we're doing. And to your point, Dean, I'm all about compliance, and you'll see that here, that we've gone to BPH many times just to make sure that the strategies that we've come up with as a group are compliant. So these are the committee members right now. We have Pam, Mary, Stephanie. I'm not gonna read through it's all on the slide, but these are all perspectives from different angles within the opioid crisis. We have first responders, we have people with lived experience, and the people that we were missing were those who were actively using. You know, they're the ones in it. So, and we were brought that perspective from BPH saying that was the person missing at our table. So we did go to people and we spoke with about 30 people who were freshly out of using, they're about a week or two in recovery. And asked them really what are the gaps here in Cohasset? What are we missing? How would these funds be best utilized? And over the years, I think we started since 2020, 2021, conversations have started. And over the years, I've had community members calling me or coming to me saying what really would help in the opioid crisis here specifically. So we've brought that information to the committee and we've met, and you'll see I have a little timeline of our meetings, but on the next slide, we broke it down to 3 categories. There, I put it here 4 just to make it a little more sense, but the prevention piece, prevention team, and the prevention kits is so the 3 categories is prevention team, and then monetary aid, and then education / community awareness. And so the prevention team is gonna essentially fund a recovery coach and the parent advisor or parent advocate. However you want to refer to her. And we already have that in Cohasset. A lot of people don't realize that that's a resource that we provide. It's a free, confidential parent advisor, Anne Marie Wilton. This person who has lived experience that can walk you through, you know, how to find a detox, what insurance covers, what's the process is. Once you're in that moment, it's very overwhelming if you haven't been through it before. So the parent advocate and the recovery coach, and this would be more of a proactive team. Working with Stephanie Saunders, who's our regional social worker, and then police and fire as well. And then the prevention kits, we're hoping to provide these in all public spaces. So Narcan, fentanyl strips, resources, and this non-stigmatizing package that is free to the community. We have Narcan 24/7. We are a certified Narcan provider with partnered with East Coast Recovery. So Safe Harbor and East Coast Recovery, we are certified Narcan provider. So if anyone in Cohasset, doesn't even have to be Cohasset, anyone came to us, we have Narcan on hand for free 24/7. Another resource that I feel like hasn't gone out there to the public. So we would put these into a kit and have a robust campaign to let everyone know that these are available and put them in libraries and bathrooms and town hall. That's something.
So I have a question about that. I think it's terrific to have that available. How do you, if you put them in those types of places you just mentioned, how do you control theft?
There's no,
that's fine.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's we don't have to control the numbers. The hope is that people just take them. It's just
Or
free for all.
theft maybe is the wrong word. Misuse of taking them. You're taking them for not the proper reasons. Is there any kind of control?
I'm not understanding.
So if you're in the library and you stacked up 20 kits, it's okay to walk in and take all 20. Okay.
Yeah, if that,
Okay.
yeah, the hope is if you need it, it's there, and
Okay.
we would restock it. So I guess to answer your question, would there be control of restocking?
Okay.
We would have designated areas and then, these are still logistics that we can work through. But then we would make sure that they are fully stocked at all times. But yeah, if you were to come in and you need 20 kits. We're hoping it's just more the merrier, honestly. The monetary aid part is fund, these are gonna be funds that are set aside for therapy stipends, the family treatment side of things, those who are family members of someone who's struggling, who has addiction and oftentimes don't go seek therapy themselves, but need it in processing. We have a loved one who's going through this. Therapy is very expensive. So to provide stipends to those who aren't able to afford it. And then scholarships for extended recovery, so primarily sober homes. Sober living is a huge barrier to those who are trying to continue through their journey of recovery. You have detox and residential treatment, and you leave and you're kind of thrown into the world to go figure it out. And if you're someone who's been struggling for years, you don't have a job, you can't afford those first few weeks. So our hope is to bridge that gap and mitigate that barrier. And that third section is education and community awareness. So continuing prevention. So Safe Harbor does run out of the DSC grant in 2027. So these could be funds set aside for supplementing salaries of the staff of Safe Harbor. I mean, we're working with the town to get it into the budget. This is a $75,000 in the grand scheme of things. It's nothing. So the monies will be gone. But just to have it set aside if necessary, and then consuming our community awareness and prevention. So these are just meetings to note. Again, I won't go through all of them, but as I mentioned, CARE Mass is DPH, so we've met with DPH just again to make sure that the strategies that we've come up as a group are compliant and appropriate usage of these funds. And they've come back and said, you know, we're right on target, and it all aligns with the subdivision agreement that is for the municipalities. And that's listed on the next slide. And you can see the last meeting that we had was on the 4th with DPH. And that goes a little bit further into what areas that, you know, mental health needs fits with addressing mental health conditions within the subdivision agreement. Sober living scholarships fits within the providing access to housing within the subdivision agreement, et cetera. Scott,
The questions that the board has?
so our next steps are, we're currently in the conference. We had the first day today. Tomorrow is the last day of the statewide opioid abatement conference. And then moving forward, we're coming up with the criteria for the therapy stipends. We're working with Recovered Souls. They are an organization in Quincy. They already use, Weymouth and Quincy use them as kind of a way to fund the sober living and stipends for therapy. So you essentially give the funds to Recovered Souls, and they take care of the accountability, making sure that the person who is applying for the scholarship is from your town, state town, let's say Cohasset. Make sure that they have a sponsor and the job, everything like that, keeping them accountable, and the check goes directly to the sober and not state. So that's kind of where we're at for our next steps. So a lot of logistics that we need to iron. Those are our 3 categories that we're hoping that the board is in agreement with and supportive.
Well, this is great. Thank you. I think it would be interesting to know, really for the future, as you're doing all this work to collect the data and the stats on it, including, for example, if we're looking at building in something into the budget in 2027, to continue to get information on the need and the hours, to help us understand the need that we're trying to fill, including if there's any possibility to a regional sharing, like we share in, for example, to see if there's anyone we might naturally align with if we were to do a shared resource.
Yeah.
So I think that could be really great. But thank you. Thank you for all of your work and help and everyone else who's working with you.
Appreciate it. And so just in terms of Safe Harbor, we're obviously continuing our efforts. We have youth ambassadors who are following it. And then we have a mental health subcommittee where they have ARPA funds that they're going to provide additional mental health resources. And
in addition to that therapy stipend, so stay tuned. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
I think it's important that people at home understand that Cohasset's a wonderful place, but this is a real serious problem. And it hits every family and every neighborhood. It's not just an inner city issue. You'd be surprised. You will know neighbors, friends you've never. And when this hits, it's silent, it's devastating. And frequently it takes a while to kind of grow. So in my position, humble position, I think that this is a very important public health emergency. It's a lot worse than many people. If you haven't been hit by it or know somebody, you just don't realize. And so when I say public health emergency, I do not say that lightly. And I urge my fellow members of the select board to find a way to fund this and make this as a permanent part of our town public health. And thank you for your organization and all that you've done.
I just want to start really quickly that I really want to thank Nicole and the whole team for doing this. We're way ahead of the game. It's a lot of communities who don't even know what they don't even know they have money. So we've been, and we met about a month ago to go over what we were. So we're way ahead. Listen, the work that Safe Harbor has been doing is really part of the town, and you're going to see that now. Anyway, it's really part of our community now. And Jack's Plus Well Taken really is an issue that people don't want to talk about. You know what? But it's real, and the work that's being done here, it's really amazing, and it goes on every day. So thank you for all work.
Thank you. Did you want one at a time?
Have one.
Well, I guess
For your
everyone
comments.
can come up and that's fine. So you can present however you like. I don't know if you have a particular order or.
We do.
Yeah.
Oh, great idea on the mic.
Oh,
Just to make it a little worse.
thank you. Well, hello, all. Oh, hello all. Thank you for having us. My name's Jack. I'm here with,
Oh, I'm Sam.
I'm Aaron. I'm Noah McDowell.
Dylan Jewel. And I'm Cherokee. And we're all with Safe Harbor and the Substance Abuse Awareness Club at Cohasset High School. And we just want to talk to you about CATCA, the trip we took this February. So what is CATCA? CATCA is the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. It's really this overarching coalition made up a bunch of smaller local coalitions, and its real mission statement is strengthen those smaller coalitions by providing them with the resources, community, and these different seminars that support them in their smaller goals. And the CATCA Forum itself, hosted in Washington, D.C., provided a lot of amazing opportunities to visit seminars hosted by professionals and experts in the field, along with speaking to state and local legislators, and really connecting and meeting with other youth who have similar goals to us. And it was a great time to brainstorm and network.
Sure. So now a major part of CATCA was our opportunity to have legislative visits with various legislators in the House and staffers in the Senate. So our first legislative visit was part of the House, was with Senator Representative Bill Keating. We mostly discussed our various legislative concerns about Safe Harbor relating to not only substance misuse, but also mental health and how that plays into substance misuse. Moreover, since Bill Keating was our representative, we talked to him about our current projects such as Cohasset Minds Matter and different projects of that nature and how we're attempting to make a difference in the community of Cohasset. Then next we met with Senator Ed Markey's staff. We kind of talked of things of a similar nature. It was predominantly Cohasset represented in that meeting. With the senator meetings, it was broken up across Massachusetts. We had some members from CASA attend, we had some members from other places in Massachusetts attend, whereas before it was just from CASA, since we were the only ones in Ed Market's district. The last one of the day was with Senator Elizabeth Warren. More members of across Massachusetts coalitions were represented. We had some from, I believe, Braintree, we had some from Hopkinton, we had some from across Massachusetts. I talked about a range of concerns. So ours were more mental health focused. Some other coalitions were more around alcohol and opioids. Like there was one coalition concerned about federal regulation of selling alcohol online, as well as different state priorities of the work they were doing with opioid settlement money or things of that nature. And this legislative visits was a part of CAGCA's wider push, what's called Capitol Hill Day, which affords members of coalitions from across the United States to meet with senators and representatives and their staffers and talk to them directly about what they're seeing in their community, and different concerns they have for like federal legislation, how those representatives can help with our prevention work. And here are some photos from some of the meetings.
So another major part of CADCO were the training sessions that we attended. These involved various subjects, mainly around prevention and support of mental health, and gave us a more specific and critical thinking approach to our learning so we could retain the information. So one of these courses that we took was policy implementation. We were given a strategic prevention framework, as you can see here, that set up a guideline for what we could do regarding steps for policy change. We went over various methods of policy change, such as coalitions, protests, and lobbying. And it gave us a guideline for reaching out to important figures such as senators and state representatives.
Another thing we talked about was, now that we have all this information and we're learning so much, how do we actually put any of this into action and make a difference? We met with lots of coalitions from across the country, really from everywhere, to break down our strategic planning and our process. From there, we tasked with developing a strategic plan for a project we had coming up, and we used this opportunity to flesh out ideas for youth ambassadors. Four quadrants of conflict resolution, being competing, collaborating, avoiding, and accommodating. This provides us with useful skills to help navigate the conflict we face in youth ambassadors.
Okay, so at CADCA, a really cool thing about CADCA is that they have a fair throughout the whole week where we have the opportunity to go and meet with companies and different organizations that can provide resources for Safe Harbor and youth ambassadors that we can use a lot, specifically with Co-Opted Minds Matter and other events that we put in place. They offer resources, which is a few examples that we have. Okay, so one of these examples is the Truth Initiative, which is a coalition, kind of like Safe Harbor, but on a larger scale. They promote a culture of youth people rejecting smoking, vaping, and nicotine. And they create impactful nicotine and vaping prevention on a national level. They have a lot of resources and projects that we looked at to expand Safe Harbor Youth Ambassadors. A lot of these projects are on a seasonal or like social media campaigns. So there's some specific ones that in the past they've done and are looking to do again in the future that we might want to join in on. And then SAMHSA. SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administrations. They're the one who created 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and they provide a lot of resources that we've been looking to promote for youth and in Safe Harbor as a whole. They also provide resources such as posters and helpline magnets. We were able to receive a few of them, and they make it super easy to just go on their website and order more. And then they have other campaigns that we've tried to get involved in the past and hopefully the future. One of these is the Voices of Youth, which engage young people in peer activities that educate and empower them to make good choices about alcohol, drugs, and their future. And it provides opportunities for youth and young adults to develop leadership skills and learn about careers in prevention and other behavioral health fields. And one of the things that the Voice of Youth does is this self-love, wellness, and prevention webinar that's on their website. It teaches prevention strategies and other programs to prevent substance abuse. And it also has other social media campaigns that go along with this. They use the hashtag #MyPreventionStory. We've actually, in our social medias before, we've looked at, especially right now, our middle schoolers are looking at the social media campaign, and we've been trying to promote them, tagging on to SAMHSA's and adding on to it. So, and then finally, the Ask, Listen, Learn campaign. It's an underage drinking prevention curriculum for kids 9 through 13. It's best in the grades 5 through 6. They just have different lesson plans and videos that teach kids about what the brain does and alcohol does to it. It could be a useful addition to health curriculum that we're looking into. And I think the 8 lessons, they're looking to expand on it in other areas. So we're just keeping an eye on that in the future.
So, in terms of connecting with other coalitions, in preparation for our legislative visits, talked about before, we worked closely with other coalitions from Massachusetts that we met and with similar groups from across the country. This provided us with a great opportunity to see what neighboring communities in Massachusetts and other states we're working on. One of these was Eastern Wings of Hope, which was centered around Narcan accessibility, as Nicole brought up earlier, for instance. And it's a youth coalition and a similar organization to COACID, and it incorporates youth who are both in high school and middle school. And this was just one example of the coalitions we saw. Another was Close Community in Longmeadow, Massachusetts. And it was efforts to reduce, they're centered around efforts to reduce youth substance use and abuse within the town of Longmeadow. And they were focused on community action based around youth and wider community collaboration and action. And that was the measures with their coalition, directly communicating with other town organizations and departments such as the school, the town itself, their police department, I believe, and other organizations, which were interesting for us as a coalition to look on as similar examples and how maybe we could apply things that they're doing to our work. And then as a final slide for representation, this is a photo we took with the CEO of CADCA at the coalition meeting.
Well, great, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to say or conclude with?
It's basically it, unless you had any questions.
Are there any questions?
Just want to say thank you. I mean, there's no more effective way to engage with kids on a topic than to have you talk to them about it. We would be complete failures at this. So the only way this works is if you were engaged as you are. So thank you for that.
Second, exactly what I always said. You guys do a fantastic job.
Well, and one of the things the select board has been trying to do is to bring more fun events like the fireworks that we heard about earlier to Cohasset. So use suggestions for us based on, alternate events that kids might enjoy. Certainly you can free to let us know, Mr. Senior, because we have been trying to work in more fun things for kids to do. So, we know Cohasset's a lovely but slightly boring town at times. So try to find some alternate activities for kids to do.
And speaking of alternate activities, one of the things that always causes me a little bit of concern is we seem to focus so many social events around alcohol. And that sends a real message that have a good time, have a date, have alcohol. And the alcohol really is a gateway drug to harder drugs. I mean, people try to deny that, but it's factually correct. So you guys are really to be created and be congratulated, and thank you very, very much. Done a good job, and yeah, should we spoil them and tell them we're in their gratitude? Yeah, you've earned our gratitude. Well done.
Thank you very much. You're on, Virginia? You can feel free to leave them. Care about zoning and infrastructure.
Yeah, we'll show our gratitude by saying, it's all right for you to leave.
Right. So. I'm trying to catch up on time. All right, I want to start off real quick on, and I know Michelle's in here, but
She was able to, was she able to join us or not? She able-
She's in the audience.
Yeah, she said if she's feeling better, she tried.
okay. I know Paul might have to leave quick, so I wanna do.
We can go through it quick, I mean, but she's here if you want. So.
Is there a specific update on?
No, I mean, so the board got a sheet, a one page that was in your packet, and there were a lot of updates. Just so your public's aware too, and by the way, do we have your video?
Yeah.
You want to see Kevin's quick recreation video?
Sure.
One ballot. So one of the things we want to do is we want to start putting regular updates on capital projects for people in quick videos. The first thing that happened last week, where they were doing geotechnical testing with the tennis schools to see what they'll have to do. So here's Kevin's video.
We covered the holes, right?
We covered the holes. It's covered.
Yeah, that's because they might have lost.
So
Key part of the video, right here, the whole.
So what's gonna happen, next, is there'll be a property survey. Some of the neighbors that are up the back are gonna, they should be aware, that we'll be out for shooting lines, to make sure everything's okay. And Michelle's been working with the Beechwood community on doing a visioning session with the kids up there, to get some ideas about what the playground might look like. We have some thoughts, so we're working on getting that together. I think Kevin's working with her on that, right?
Yeah, plan for now, March 26th. That's
It's a development.
early release of development. Yeah, me and Michelle are gonna be working on that, along with some folks from recreation.
So we'll be doing regular updates every couple of weeks to let me know. So that's recreation.
Chris, you said that there was a memo, I didn't see it in the.
It should have been a packet. It's like a one pager that you all should have gotten.
Thank you. Sorry. Could you just send it to us?
All right. Tracy Robinson's name was in there, but I want to get this out to you a week ahead. A recommendation to keep like a one page. It's my town manager update. Should be in the packet, so that's okay. We'll double check it.
So let's move to town hall. I'm sorry. Chris,
No, go,
you were-
go.
So let's actually flip the order, because I think that might make a little more sense. So long-range planning. Let me just pull back and say, I've now heard from multiple people about how we're just gonna move forward with One Pleasant Street without any, just without any approval or anything. That's not correct. The One Pleasant Street proposal is, if we vote on it today, is going to be before town meeting to vote on it in June. So the select board is just preserving an option for town meeting if they don't want to pay taxes for a town hall, to have that option if they so choose. And so let me elaborate on that a little bit more. I went to the long-term financial planning group. We had a majority there, just to report out on long-term financial planning, and the impression of the group, and then I separately talked with with the last member who wasn't able to make the group meeting, and he was also in agreement. The group, and these are the chairs of advisory, capital budget, schools, Chris and me. We all collectively agreed that the purchase of One Pleasant Street, the first floor, now that it's allowed as condos, and we can purchase the first floor from a financial standpoint, is the path to follow. It has, it provides the opportunity to the community to essentially address our municipal services in a potentially tax-free way. And when I say tax-free way, this was where we started to push further into the numbers and what we wanted to do in terms of funding the purchase. So we started to discuss pulling some money from capital stabilization, pulling some money from free cash. But because we didn't want to, we wanted to try to continue to maintain balance with capital stabilization. So one thing we did talk about was taking some money from general stabilization. We do have a lot of funds right now, general stabilization, and we can pay ourselves back over time using free cash. Sort of like if you were taking a loan from your 401k, when you pay yourself back, it's better than going to the market, let's say, to get a bond, right? Like we could take the money out and then pay ourselves back over time with free cash versus taking a bond out at X% interest rate. So we discussed having Chris talk with our rating agencies about what might be advisable if we were to have a plan to do a mix of a capital stabilization bond plus some money out of the general stabilization plus some money out of free cash to reduce the amount we would even need to bond. And let me be clear, when I say we need to bond out of capital stabilization, I'm talking about taking up a bond or a loan, essentially, from the existing tax levy and not increasing taxes for that. So for example, if we're looking at 3.5 million, let's say we take, and I'm just gonna use hypothetical numbers, 500 from free cash, 1.5 million from the general stabilization fund, 1.5 million from a loan against capital stabilization. Then that would be a loan that we would repay over time through the capital stabilization funds. So I wanted to just put that out there, that was where the long-term financial planning group was circling around as it related to One Pleasant Street and some of the options we may want to consider from a payment/financing perspective. So that's number one. Number two, we talked about what to do about 41 Highland, our existing town hall. And there, we did talk about the demolition of the annex and the repair to bring that building back to what it historically was, which was a performing center, and restore the 1920s building when it was rebuilt in the 20s. We know that price tag is 8.6 million, probably that's a minimum. So we're looking at least 9 million on top of the 3+ for One Pleasant. Our immediate reaction to the 9 million was that's going to have to be a tax increase. That's the only way we could fund it, fund the repairs, which we know are significant to the town hall. We would not recommend funding it any other way, just because, we can't handle it within our existing tax levy, not responsibly at least. So we did think that we're aware that there's a group out there that is interested in the nonprofits working with the town to see what options might be available to turn it into a community project that is driven by the nonprofits And if they were able to do it and potentially even take it over, they could potentially cut the price in half. And if they did that, combined with CPC funding, a capital campaign, and some additional grant sources, there's a potential they could renovate the town hall at no cost to the town, other than what people chose to donate for the capital campaign. And there was a sense among the long-term financial planning group that it made more sense to wait and see what that group did and what they were able to come back with than to try to push forward with the tax increase 4,100 at the annual town meeting, because the immediate feedback we got was that people were not going to support a tax increase. So we got some pretty strong feedback on.
Did we get any indication of when these folks thought the nonprofits and potential donors could start putting together proposals?
They have been meeting and they're gonna come to on March 27th.
Right.
And I invited them to come and present on March 27th, along with, I think, Chris, you're reaching out to the citizens petitioners who also have a petition for some repairs, sort of a competing vision for town hall, which is probably when all said and done, depending on how many years, 20, 10 to 15 million. And so, both groups can put out their ideas, and then we can all discuss.
Have the time, Suzanne.
No, I was considering saying something and thinking better of it, so allow me to consider while you speak.
No, do we have a timeline, these petitions, about what they're proposing? Duration, we'll go slow there, town hall.
Only what was in their petition, which I think is fairly vague. I think you'll have a copy of it.
Yeah.
It's on the packet, should have been.
I think fairly vague, it's generous.
Yeah, it was fairly vague. It was like a phased approach.
I'm just putting it out for the public. That's why it's on there. It's over a number of years.
Yeah, I was over at least 3 or 4, I think. With about a certain amount of money, because that's not really long.
And we don't really have the funding source.
Well, I was also at that meeting and met privately with some other
I just sent it to you.
other people.
I was on-
Meeting
you were.
for the having the art center and the various nonprofits. There's some pretty accomplished organizations that are very interested in this. With it, some of them have substantial track records of doing projects. I mean, just look at the art center. They've also demonstrated the organizational strength to run the arts festival every year for years. Drama club. It is a daunting task. However, one of the advantages is if it qualifies as a nonprofit, then it would qualify for us to fund it with CPC money. So this will be partially publicly funded, but the real problem with, as we've discussed before, with having government entities do it is we have to do it under a variety of government requirements, prevailing wage, et cetera, and so on, which drives the cost up substantially. So doing it with a nonprofit, we can get substantial economies, and we retain that very important cultural center of the town right on the common.
If I could respond, Jack, I agree with everything that you said. I'm concerned that this appears to be a good option. With town meeting coming up as soon as it is, this option has been out there for a while, and I don't think we've seen a substantial proposal that we could put alongside a town hall proposal to get the balance that I think we need for anything to pass.
Oh, well, I know it has not really been seriously put together earlier, and I'm not a major player in putting it together. It's just as this board knows, I've suggested over while, but no, the horsepower to do this is just now starting to get together. And I am not a driver behind it. I'm just following it because I think it's a good idea. But that's a very good point. What we need to see right now is put the pedal to the metal. Can people really raise money? And that's a good thing that we need to be skeptical. Because, you know, everybody has dreams. What's the thing? If wishes were ponies, we'd all have horses or some such.
I would just hate to hand a plan for town hall on. We'll come up with a plan later. Someone else is gonna come up with this. I'd much rather go to town meeting with all the questions answered. Which I'm concerned with town meeting coming up as soon as it is.
I don't think we have to answer this at town meeting. What we have to answer at town meeting is One Pleasant Street.
I would respectfully disagree. My novice political opinion, people can disagree, is that a large part of the reason why the previous Pleasant Street proposal wasn't successful is that it wasn't packaged with a plan for what to do with Highland Ave.
I think you're absolutely correct on that.
So I'm reluctant to do that again.
I don't think we want to do that. I think we have to have some real meat on the bone, so to speak. Because you're right. Because it was not on there, people say we're not going to lose our town hall. Here, the question would be whether this group can get enough of a credible presence and get maybe the art center says, we would do this if we had this. But, you know, you're right. If it's not real, if it's vaporware, it's vaporware. That's a good point.
So. Yes, Paul, go.
No, I was just saying both Chris and John. I just think, I agree. I think that that what we have to face is a cogent plan for Highland Avenue. Be it, I think we should have a cost comparison. What it's going to take the town to do what Gene just mentioned. Are they willing to take that extra burden on? What we're looking at is we're doing the same thing, something similar. Derivation thereof is we're working with the nonprofits. That may take a little more time. We know that. But if they're working in conjunction, the board with the town, and the plan comes together, it's a timing thing. Now, the town, what we're trying to avoid is a tax increase. What we want to see at the end of the day is restored town hall. So my thoughts are, again, is present that as a plan, this is what we envision. These other folks are going to have theirs. We know that, respected. But that's what I want. I do agree on both sides that we have to at least present something at town meeting. To see the vision.
Well, I guess. I mean, we can try to drive a decision if we want. We have a few options. We could, as the select board, put a warrant article out there to get a sense of town meeting on whether they want to pursue a renovation, which even if we did the bare minimum, we estimate would be at least 8.6 million of the existing town hall, we tear down the annex, or do we want to wait to see what the community nonprofits come up with? I think it's important, given the citizens petition that's out there, to be transparent about the cost, because this petition, in my opinion, is not. It's a first phase of 1 million for 4 items that will cost more than 1 million. And so, and this is just phase 1 of a long, drawn out plan that is not on the citizens petition. So, you know, we could do that. We could put it on the ballot. We could say, okay, fine. Does the town want 8.6 million to just once and for all pay increased taxes to get this done, knowing that there's these other groups out there that may do it for free to you as a
That's what I'm
taxpayer?
saying. We also have the forum coming up.
Yeah.
How are we doing in the survey? I think the survey is going to be very telling. Get responses on that. And with the forum, people are welcome to present their ideas, thoughts. And I think we should have a survey. But I think the survey is going to be a big tell. And we should get that out there pretty quick. And again, before, see what these folks bring up again, the same $1 million to,
Does it say 1 million?
no.
It says at the very end on the, it's not in the actual article, it's in the information summary. So as
Oh, the
as a
citizens.
legal matter, we could spend what we need to spend because it's not even in the actual petition. It's just in the information summary.
Yeah, up to.
And there's no funding source.
So I have a question, Chris, in our packet from March 4th and then again for tonight, there is this outline of costs for repairs, but it doesn't say what it's for. Is it for the annex? Is it for the whole building? Is it? It's 8.6 million, but if I remember correctly from previous meeting, both numbers were about the same.
Yeah.
And then I had a conversation with you and Michelle. Well, what is overlapping in the two numbers? Because we were saying, okay, well, then it's 17 million to do the whole 41 Highland Ave. But a lot of costs were double stated because they were calculated separately.
This is for just the historic town hall with the room, the annex, because there's a line in here for site underpinning because the foundations are interlocked. So if you take out the annex, there's foundation work that is, so this is for just.
That's just for the historic part.
Yeah, it's for
Okay,
the
thank you.
historic. Sorry.
Yeah, these things should be labeled.
Yeah, we have to. If you see that line out on the bottom.
Yep, yeah.
If you leave both buildings up, there's no need to. fix
Right.
it.
So, at the risk of being repetitive to my colleagues, and I might just be a little bit more adamant, I think if we don't have a buttoned up plan, and I appreciate all the work the long-range planning group did on the strategy for One Pleasant and how it's gonna fund it, but we need to lay it out precisely and exactly what it is to fund it the way it's been proposed versus funding it on a debt exclusion or some other mechanism, what the offsetting costs are.
I think the message is, if you want to do 41 Highland, that should be debt exclusion. That was the consensus. That's the appropriate way to fund it.
Fund Highland, yeah, okay, but what, right,
Yeah.
or One Pleasant Street.
Highland.
Right. So the only recommendation for funding One Pleasant Street is what the long range planning group came up with.
I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I feel like we're talking past each other slightly.
The only funding mechanism for One Pleasant Street purchase, the 3.5 million, is what you articulated from long range planning.
Well, I think there's a variety of funding mechanisms that the board, we could do a debt exclusion for One Pleasant Street and raise taxes. We could try to fund it through a non-tax increase, which is what we were focused on in the long range financial
Yeah.
planning. So how do we do that? And I think the desire was for, hey, let's buy the property because let's say we fight about what to do about 41 Highland for another 10 years. By the time all is said and done, we would have been better off just buying One Pleasant. Because if you take 10 times 300, you're gonna come out ahead, which is why the option seems to be the more attractive option. That makes sense.
Also, I understand what Mel was saying. I don't think we have got this petition option. We've got a restoration of partial restoration of the building and the historic and the annex, which we're looking at. I believe it was, what about Chris, 18 million? I don't have the figures in front of me.
The whole building?
Doing the whole building, but just, you know, keeping the lights on and getting it going.
It was less than that.
It was less, okay.
You mean the cosmetic restoration?
Cosmetic restoration was up.
No, I think it was only like 8. I think it was less than 10. That meant no new bathrooms, no new.
8.411.
Yeah.
But we also had a cost of repairing the building in the end.
We do, and that's.
We were looking at about 18 something, say 18.9.
For everything, for a full renovation.
Full facelift and redo. So I think it's kind of inherent in us. So we should present all 3 plans.
You know, one option I was thinking about, which may be a little wonky, we need to talk to Carolyn about how long ago last year, but what if we said something along the lines of, we want to fund one Pleasant with a tax-free option? We want to do a reno and the demo of the annex, but do a historic preservation on the old town hall as a community asset. And authorize us to raise taxes up to, pick your number, 8.5 million. If the community groups don't come through within the year. So we have a contingency. If we won't raise taxes unless we need to, and then we do the ballot vote next go around. So that way we have a plan in place if the community groups can't come up with something in the interim. But we would be waiting a year, and the reason that we would be timing it like that is to give people comfort that there's a plan for the building if it doesn't come to fruition the way we hope it is, but would the vote last a year?
I think it's 90 days.
Okay.
I think you have to have the vote within 90 days of town meeting.
We could present that.
Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing, the warrant article is, because everything is up to a number, right? You vote, you appropriate funds up to a certain amount of money, pending offsets from community preservation, capital, private capital campaigns, and other grant funding, so that it's a number that won't be exceeded, and it could be dramatically reduced. And if we follow the models like for 135 King Street, you don't borrow it all up front. There's going to be a year or 6 or 9 months of design and engineering and things like that, right? So that gives the nonprofit group time to raise additional money.
Yes, and which will prove a town meeting is different from ballot question. So the thing is that, yeah, so if you vote at town meeting, the ballot question has to be within 90 days. And there's no number, right? So it's tied back to the town meeting. So if it's up to, I'll just give you, this is just for conversation, up to 10 million.
Yeah.
The voters are gonna be voting on up to 10 million. And they come in last.
Yeah.
But that's what they're voting. So, someone could argue that, well, we can get all full freight on this. So.
But I think that's what we're
Yeah,
going for,
yeah.
that the backstop option would be the 10 million debt exclusion with fingers crossed that the community groups come up with nonprofit contributions that would do it for close to zero. I think that's what we're
Right,
envisioning here.
right. Present the worst and plan for the best.
We would have approval to do the up to 10
Yeah.
if the nonprofit community groups don't come together with a plan.
And I think another thing that we've already discussed, that this is to some extent potentially a backstop for One Pleasant, because whatever we do, we are going to need that space for 2, 3 years, maybe 5 years. So just on temporary space, and then let's say we get to rebuild the whole town hall, we can't do it in place. We're gonna have to take care of our office requirements. And I think we discussed this 3 weeks ago. And we have to do that anyway. So moving forward with One Pleasant makes sense because it doesn't tie us to any of the other things, because that provides an interim place for the offices that we're gonna need no matter what we do. The old town hall, the annex, or whatever we do, we're gonna have to have office space. And that's the cheapest way to do it on the short term. And this gives us a little bit of breathing room on getting the final decision.
So, Jack, I'm gonna respectfully disagree. What I'm thinking is, if we want to go to town meeting, it has to be with a plan, not with a temporary measure that would create options. So I understand that whether we move back into 41 Highland Ave with that as town hall, or we move to Pleasant Street and that becomes town hall. In both of those scenarios, we need to get out of Highland Ave for some period of time.
Yes. But I'm not saying that's the be all and end all.
Agreed.
As part of part of the rationale to at least grab that and start moving.
But at least where I am is, and this is why we're talking this through, is that we go to town meeting with a proposal that has all the details worked out and minimizes as much as possible we're gonna figure that out later.
I don't have a problem.
And One Pleasant Street can't be temporary because the lease is off the table, so it's a purchase. Right?
Yes.
A lease is still on the table. I mean, legally, I think we could, but I think practically, I think it's not where we want to go. Unless I'm misreading things.
Yes,
I think-
however, if we bought it, that doesn't mean we can't sell it. And I suspect that once we buy it, the market will have improved. A lousy time for him to be selling that. That's why he's giving it such a good deal, by the way. But we could sell it down the line, 3 or 4 years from now, if we decided to. But we would, instead of having an old, beat up, run down building, we would have a new high quality building. Good location. That's just another, potential. But I wouldn't necessarily advocate that.
So what I would strongly suggest, though, is that we separate Mount Pleasant from 41.
Yes.
That's one warrant article, that's one funding stream. 41 Highland is a separate one, the contingency 41 is a separate one, separate funding stream. I think it's gonna get too complicated if we bundle them together. Do you think that there's gonna be a lot of people who aren't gonna vote 41 or 10 million for 41 Highland based on feedback, just about increased taxes generally? But I do think that that represents, whether it's a repair or a reno and demo, the annex, the real number is hovering somewhere around there. I think it's gonna take, I would not be surprised if that fails at the ballot.
If 41 Highland,
Yeah. I would not be surprised
I'm sorry.
if 41 Highland fails at the ballot.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not sure is a good look for us, particularly to our rating agency. So I think we just want to be careful about how we proceed.
You just talk about separating.
I know.
Separating them in terms of how they're organized
And funded.
on the warrant and on the ballot. But I think our position going into the meeting would be, I hope we can get all 5 select board members in favor of both move to Mount Pleasant and the financial support for modest renovation, 41 Highland Ave, for use as a community space.
I would not want to put Mount Pleasant on the ballot. I think we can do that. I don't want to increase taxes unless we need to. I think we have to for 41. Don't think we have to for Mount Pleasant. So, yeah, no, I know.
Political package, not.
Yeah.
Let's get everybody to go to that nonprofit meeting.
And you know something? There is a fondness, this gentleman has articulated quite clearly tonight, there is a fondness for Highland Avenue. And deservedly so. So, I think that taking one, separating from the other, and getting it up, I don't know if it would be as bad as we may failing at the ballot. But I think we have to have
Let's get that survey out there.
the survey out there. We have to have the option of nonprofits. So that's all. And I don't know how we structure it, but if we get it, give ourselves them some time to figure out their funds. But we have it as a contingency, and I think that might even energize the town. So. Because as I'm going by the Senate for that building.
Yeah, I just wish we could do this in November. Longer lead time. That's all, struggling with the amount of work to do this in this time.
But it's not right, but everybody's right. About it. We have to get it this town meeting with. Like,
Yeah.
I agree with everybody that's saying, oh, I think that we kind of missed the mark.
We could do like a challenge grant to the nonprofits and say, look, we will sell it to you for X amount of dollars, and we will refund that to you if you can, if you can put something together, if you can raise, you know.
And Jack will go to jail first. Right, I think.
Well, I know, you'll keep me out of jail, because if I, as long as I can keep you on the
He's
other
just
side,
kidding, everyone.
nobody will put me in. No, I think you can,
we're
I think you can do
hypothesizing.
something like that.
I think we're hypothesizing a lot about the nonprofits, and they're coming on the 27th, so why don't we just wait and
Yeah.
table all of the theoretical conversations on that until we hear and get a sense of the likelihood of them being able to do something, so.
Yeah.
Because we can go on and on and on about it.
One Pleasant though. If we're gonna move on, Pleasant, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that our lawyers need to get started on with respect to the condo doc. Do we want to take a vote to move forward with that warrant article, subject to continuing to analyze the funding sources, so we can deploy KP and we can also have advisory and capital do what they need to do. How do people feel about that?
I have a lot of concerns about One Pleasant Street, not from the sense of the opportunity it provides to house our municipal government. Concerned about the increase in purchase price due to the uplift charges that all of a sudden just appeared, that weren't there 3 months ago. Then looking at the list, it's all the finished work. It's plasterboard, it's doors, it's windows, it's electrical. It's things that were part of the original 3.2. And I understand the developer is probably struggling a little bit. But it's 3.5 today. What is it going to be by the time we get there? I would like to see, because we haven't seen, we've talked. I'd like to see on paper a financial analysis of all of the options for financing, how we're going to do it. From capital budget, the moving costs, any offsetting costs by vacating 41 Highland Ave, that we can go towards servicing whatever amount of money is spent on One Pleasant Street, because you'll have a decrease in operating costs. You know, you're not going to need to run the heat or the AC, or you're not going to have the drain on the electrical that you would have, or water or sewer. Chris, you had mentioned at one time that if the building isn't occupied, 41 Highland Ave, there's insurance issues. I'd like to know what those implications are. Does it mean the premium goes up? Does it mean our coverage comes down? I have no idea what that means, but you brought it up, so I'd like to understand it. I'd like to know in writing regarding Mr. Howland's January 26th letter saying that the mitigation factors, once they were achieved, he would issue a certificate of occupancy.
It's a certificate of inspection. It's not certificate of occupancy.
It says occupancy. I have it. Want me to read it again?
No.
So, again, there's been conversation that it's only good for 6 months, and then maybe look at it again in another 6 months. I'd like that to be fine. I'd like to know specifically what that is. And then I'm not going to regurgitate historic town hall, but I agree with Mr. Plex's opening comments. We need a succinct plan for that. And finally, you know, the final warrant is April 30th. So we still have time to massage this. Now, I don't know if a vote is necessary to get KP involved. or if we could just provide that direction to you, Chris, on structuring the warrant.
I think we have time, but I also want to be mindful, we have to allow advisory and capital time on.
Yeah.
So we're gonna build it. So.
As for KPI, I'd like to work use of direction. I don't want to be one clock meter on all right that. We have a lawyer set up. There's a new real estate counsel that assigned to us, Jeremy Smith. Michelle's already had a conversation with them. So they're ready to go. I just need to know what specifically, or whether we can wait or what to do. The condo docs are the most specific issue. The biggest unanswered question, the acquisition, is how the condo work actually documents the settlement.
Okay, so Ellen, I have, you want on paper, in writing, financial analysis of the costs, including these new build-up costs and why they weren't in the purchase price.
Yeah.
Just right,
Yeah.
he gave us, we know,
But we do know that it's 3.5.
we know it's 3.5.
So today, so that's what you want.
I'm really concerned about the cost of the deal that was put out and as to what he's modifying it for different things. My experience has been that that's generally behavior pattern that's likely to be. So I think Ellen's thing, we want to know exactly what it is. And there's no point in talking any further with somebody who, when she get a deal, says, oh, but my costs were.
If I can just clarify, what we actually have is the purchase option for the lease, which is tabled, so we don't actually have. I mean, we can use that as part of discussion. We haven't actually engaged in conversations that is strict, that's not.
Okay.
So, to your point, John, we do have. I mean, again, if you want to give me authorization to have Kate explore some of these things, we can come back to.
We're negotiating with a half-cooked piece of spaghetti.
We're not actually negotiating anything.
Yeah, not, yeah, we even got that.
We're just talking.
So why don't, so does the board want to provide direction on the purchase price? And further negotiations / locking it down on Pleasant Street? I think what happened was, when it came to capital, when it went to capital budget, if I recall correctly, they asked about, well, if we buy the place, is there going to be additional build-up that we want to do and incur? And then Michelle went back to One Pleasant, the One Pleasant Street owner. And I could have my sequencing wrong, because when I had similar questions, like what's going on? Is it 3.2? And the answer was, yeah, there's additional cost for both.
So last fall, when we were looking at purchasing the whole building, the two additional costs that we were going to bear were the installation of the vault and the installation of a foyer that was a double-door secure system. Is that correct?
Those are very two specific things, plus it was another minor outfit, and that was an FF&E. price. Yeah, the building was supposed to be given to us.
Right, so now there's architecture, carpentry, electrical, sheetrock, finished trim and doors, drop ceiling, painting, carpet, bathroom tile, HVAC distribution, contingency.
What happened, again, I'm not.
Yeah.
Is that it went from a purchase to a lease, and then there was a degree of uncertainty the owner had about whether or not we can move in advance, that, you know, we were moving, trying to move in advance. I think that if I recall what Michelle said during all time correctly, the owner got very cold feet about whether or not the town would approve, and the numbers got higher. So I do think it's important that we have a clean slate on this, so it's clear. And I also think with the condo docs, I think it's important to report that any questions.
When it fails. The builder have to calibrate. First, yeah, yes, that's my thought. So. They had to do things that they wouldn't have been doing if everything got through. This is going to put the town hall offices anyway. So, yeah, you have to calibrate readjust things.
Well, some of these costs change too, and it just costs every 6 months.
Yeah. Could I just want to clarify one thing on the condo? Does that allow condo the whole building, or does that only allow 2 condos?
It's the whole house. It's a whole building, and I,
So he could sell every unit as a condo. Every unit is now needed as a condo.
as I understand it, the intention is that condo on the first floor is one business unit and 14 residential units of individual. That's my understanding. I don't know that.
Could we clarify that? That's,
I have to go to the planning board decision.
Yeah. Well.
Exactly.
Or less.
But are there individual condos,
14 residential units and commercial.
one commercial?
Yeah, so he could sell each of the residential units, 4 of which are deeded affordable, but he could sell them separately. Just get.
And he can sell all the other condos, assuming they're on the second floor, individual.
It's 14 residential condos, 1 first floor is 1 condo.
Okay.
That's right.
It's almost 14.
Okay, so it's getting late, so where is the board inclined in terms of next steps here? It sounds like on the community proposal, we want to see what happens next week on the 27th, which I think makes sense. Is there anything that we want to do in the interim with respect to Mount Pleasant Street, including in light of what Ellen brought up?
I'll just be brief. We're very late on community input on this plan, so we really need to get the survey out. I mentioned it a couple of times. Please, let's get this.
Well, I don't have clarity of words to what you want to say. You've talked about it, you haven't actually said, put these 5 questions in, or said, modify the questions that you gave. So I have it out tomorrow, but I don't have an answer for this.
You mentioned a lot of questions.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, do we want to say, hey, let's wait and pursue a community nonprofit option? Do we want to say we're going to do Mount Pleasant and then combine it with a renovation and demo the annex? Do we want to say, or do you want to pay, 10 to 15, more likely 15 for repair of existing?
Generally, yes, I would encourage Chris and Kevin. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries.
Not that.
My mother does that too.
Just lay it out clearly. Do you want the expensive version of Highland Ave? Do you want the inexpensive version of Pleasant Street? Do we want the inexpensive version of Pleasant Street bundled with the renovation of Highland Ave? Just real high level to get us to the point where we can put forth a proposal and say, this reflects community input. 100 people filled out the survey. This is what they said they prefer. So here we are at town meeting. This is what we propose. I think we know what we want to propose. Having that survey response, I think would be very helpful. For simplified, I apologize. So please don't discount Gene's suggestions for the survey in favor of the bumper sticker version I just gave.
We can also on the survey have a, 1, 2, 3, we can have a rank choice on that.
Why don't you propose a survey?
So
Kevin,
take what you started with.
take what I started with, let the board all weigh in independently, see if we can get something.
Yeah, well, we'll work on it. I haven't sent out to comment. Just get it back to us. All right.
And board weigh in. On Mount Pleasant, what I'm sensing from the board is, you know, we want to push, we want to push the developer a little harder on the price. Figure out exactly where we are on that, particularly where he's changed it, seemingly changed it, maybe not, but we need some clarity in writing. Including from Michelle. Or you or whoever's dealing directly with him about, here's the price, here's where we got to it.
So we'll follow up on that. Want to have KP engage on doc issue as well. Same odds.
Is the board okay with directing KP to start working on the condo docs?
I think that's the right path forward. I feel more comfortable with community feedback, but I think it's money we spend because I think that's the right.
And I would also ask that just to clarify the agenda.
You guys okay with that?
Nope, fine.
So on the 27th.
We need, sorry, Chris, just to add one more. The other two things we need in writing, implications on insurance for town halls. We're trying to figure all this out, like, is there some gap in terms of something we need to consider? And if so, how much? We should build that into a capital expense, if so. And nail down John Helms.
Financial options for one plus. Insurance issues. Right. On the agenda for the 27th, so I have for 41 Highland, this presentation about the historic, sorry, the not-for-profit team on their vision of the store. We have the citizens petition proposal. And then we have also the acquisition of One Pleasant, would that be a separate presentation piece?
Kind of break that out, is my thought, but I think we should have. I'm hearing you correctly. It's what it said, we don't know exactly what the nonprofits. The annex, no, the annex. I think we should also have. Without the annex.
What this board has discussed already, we actually have,
Yes.
okay. So it's
We
the,
have, you know, nailed out some prices. So we have enough percent. Nonprofits are hoping to have their proposal. And the citizens.
we want the cosmetic one too, the one it's the bare bones, just paint and.
I think if we put it in, because I mean, it's their own, but I mean, it's, I don't know.
How many options does that take us to?
1, 2, 3, 5. Well, four for town hall plus the One Pleasant as the option.
And this is the community forum, we get feedback.
I think we put out all the options the select board has discussed. I think what we say to the citizens petitioners and the community groups is if you have anything you want to present, please provide it to the board at least 2 days in advance so we can get it in our packet. So no later than probably Sunday night, Monday morning. And I'll take a look at the agenda for this in terms of, I might reach out to the groups and see like how many people are, you know, try to organize on logistics. Because I don't want to be, I want to make sure people have enough time too. And maybe we'll start with like just a brief, everyone gets 5 minutes and then we'll do free for all, you know, just so everyone can get their ideas out there instead of it being like 20 minutes on the citizens petition, like just to.
Everyone should have a quick concise presentation.
Yeah, quick and say, everyone will line up all the options and then.
They'll have a structured conversation, so. And again, I kind of tag this as you chairing this, is that what you'd like to do?
I'll bring it time.
Kevin is.
We should know what we're coming to see. I agree with Gene on that. We should know what we're coming to see. So, you know, walk everyone 5 minutes.
No, right. People have to give presentations.
You have a presentation, you have a presentation.
And then we'll also have this on, if we get it on 143, we will. Either way, it'll be on Facebook, so streaming option. Okay. Stop pushing that information.
Alrighty, okay, Tom. All you. The grand finale. Oh, uh-oh.
So anyway, just give you an overview of what we have.
Tom, could you provide us with any, just for the sake of TRIA, any articles where we're all set, you're all set on your end, we just need to vote to send it along to the planning board? It looks like maybe housing choice is definitely one of those.
Yeah, with that one, we're just waiting feedback from the state's pre-screening process.
Okay.
That's ready to go, so that's number 3.
Okay.
Number 1 and 2 are ready to go to start. Number 4 is the development impact. And frankly, based on town council's comment, we can discuss this a little bit last night, although we lost a forum before we take any votes. One of our members of the meeting, we have a real problem with forum lately. No, I didn't take the town council comments as constructive criticism, so basically, we pulled that one. We want to rewrite the bylaw. Let them, if they want to explain to us why the planning board felt powerless to really negotiate mitigation on the recent subdivision project we had. And kind of really couldn't help out the people on Buckles Lane. I'm all ears. Town council's comments said we already had the need power to post mitigation. Respectfully disagree. So that one will go. Changes to Article 5. It's set on the, we're now calling the border zone, and we don't want to use the word buffer because it's conservation terms, so border zone for the village.
And Tom, please remind me, did KP have any comments about that?
Yeah, their comments was they didn't think it was thought through because they didn't read it. With all due respect. I think there were things that weren't addressed and what they were addressed. They were addressed if they looked at the context of all the articles and in the order that they proceed. Again, we're meeting again, we're meeting once a week now, so, more than happy to work with and council and constructive fixing. We don't have a lot of time. I know we sending things as we're spitting them out, but with the letter, yesterday morning, we're meeting. That's nice. I would like to, this an opportunity to me to talk to town council and work something out. Okay? I work for this. We really like to get the draft up and move soon. The second change to Article 5, which was to discuss a possible change in frontage and lot widths, we agreed last night was the only vote we could take. We lost our poll. We
So
agreed.
there was no vote.
No, we did. It was on that one. Before.
The vote.
Yeah, so we voted that we're not going to deal with frontage and lot width now because ideally that should be packaged with any changes we do to.
Yes, that's,
the
yes,
cluster
that was,
development.
we did
So that-
decide
that'll be a full-
we would handle that way.
The third change to Article 5 is implementing floor area ratio into the residential zones. We lost the quorum just as we were getting ready to vote on that. But and as I said, in my follow-up email to you guys last night, there was a majority consensus in favor. So that's right. It's written.
In favor, I'm sorry, of the, which one?
Switch one. And then we discussed, but again, couldn't vote on in the future of large home review. As I pointed out in the memo I wrote last week, that could survive even though we switched it. That could survive even with a limited special permit process to exceed if they were. It's just a question of should it survive or not. The original proposal was to leave it. But if it's to survive, it just needs minor tweaks of language to accommodate the switch to FAR. And both are written. Deletion is one sentence, so if I did the edit, just it's going to say that we couldn't vote on it, we're gonna vote on it. Then the final article on just do the cadence to accommodate all these other states. All these other changes, and it's town council didn't come in. Then the parking one is done. That one was the last one we sent to town council, and feedback. Really, only we've done with parking was town council's suggestion. The chart that shows all the spaces per use, just coincides with the new use table and put into the stuff. So just rewording of it. Then we put in a parking requirement for the dozen places. We have not made any substantive changes to any of the parking requirements. Because we haven't had any feedback. Right? And so the go to town meeting with essentially a housekeeping change. And to put in the parking requirement for the overview.
I thought we did have parking suggestions.
Yeah, that's the only one I mentioned, but I haven't seen anything concrete, so we look like to see that.
I proposed that construction in town be required to have one parking space per bed.
Next one per unit, but well. The overlay, we're going to do one and a half per unit.
So not one per bed.
That would change, that would alter the whole model that consultants. And would probably alter the whole district.
We're still at the 1.5.
1.5, and I spoke to the Haynes. And that's what a lot of people do.
I understand that a lot of people are doing it.
And in the village,
Thinking
it's.
that
in the
here we
village-
have a parking shortage, so
Well, the parking shortage is not a zoning problem, as I tried to
I
argue.
disagree with
It is a space problem. We don't have the space. We could develop more space in the village, we choose not to.
you. We require construction to add more parking in the space that they have.
Every-
I understand that would make the building smaller,
No, but
but
every project we have permitted in the village, and the village only by certainly since I've been here, has had on-site parking insufficient on-site.
I would disagree that it's sufficient as well.
Well, I
These-
think.
These are small units being built, we're not.
I think it was about this when I was on the planning board, but I would just love to see a change implemented that would help to alleviate
And
the
then
parking
you'll,
issues that we
and
have.
then you risk defeating the whole purpose of what the village only was, which was to encourage redevelopment and mixed use. And
Whole other topic, I'd get you going for hours because I look at it every day.
Because the driver of the parking problems in the village is hospitality uses. Also, makes it hard. So, filled up empty spaces in the village that existed 20 years ago.
And they also call me and tell me they wish they had more parking.
Yeah, I think,
Again, there's town-owned space that could be.
I think what the charge was to find out what the community wants, and then have the committee kind of fine tune that, and then have our law firm with a very capable retired Chief Justice of the zoning, state zoning, to then rewrite it and put it together. And I'm getting a lot of arguments that you don't agree with what she said. But the select board, in fact, did put it to the charge of the committee to get this some input, and then to have the our town council put it together in a form that's acceptable.
Can I respond to that? Because I don't think overall, I don't think the letter that we got was constructive criticism at all. It didn't attempt to rewrite anything, it just pointed out alleged flaws.
Okay, so you're saying that it was,
No, and that's
A
why,
bad letter.
that's why I just offered to sit down and talk with them over the next week, because they didn't suggest a thing. And, we're operating in
I
a
know.
situation that for whatever reason, we don't have the budget to use them like we did the last time. We moved it
and you
aside.
just heard from a member of the select board that says that if parking is an issue that we want dealt with as a community. And your answer is you don't agree
I didn't
because
say that. I
somebody
said we haven't
else
had
at some
any-
point wanted to revitalize it some 15 years ago. I think it is an issue.
Jack, don't put words in my mouth. I didn't
I
say that.
All
I
right.
said other than.
Fine, then I didn't say that.
Other than the
Let's
discussion.
try to
Chris-
get this,
Other
I'm
than-
pointing out that he, is a member of the Board of Selectmen. And he has a very good point, and I hear it, and I'm sure others may hear it. And the fact that you don't agree, but we'd like to move this forward.
Don't put words in my mouth, Jack. It's not that I disagree. Other than hearing Chris say it at one of these meetings, I haven't had it presented to our committee in any formal way with a concrete suggestion of what you want change. So the draft is there. Look at the draft, tell me where the change should happen. We can put it in there by next Monday and have it ready for the planning board here. And I will either fly or it won't.
That is.
My personal opinion on whether we should have one per bedroom in the village is. That's immaterial, and we'll debate that when it's proposed, but it hasn't been proposed, and you know it, Jack. We go to these meetings, we barely get a quorum among members, and we have zero participation from anybody in the public. We try, trying to do our best here, and so, and we haven't heard from town council what they think of the changes to parking, but basically, they follow the judge's done and announced it, they're doing.
All right, so hold on,
So-
hold on, before we have more back and forth, I want to interject and say, I want to focus this on, first, the parking. I agree with Chris. I agree that there's work, we probably need to, we have people coming at us pretty consistently. I don't think they know how to frame it, Tom, in a way that's probably helpful to you, so maybe that's where we need to do some of that translation and think through what are the parking requirements that we need to highlight for you and your committee to try to help. So maybe that's something Chris and I can work together on.
As a way to get the ball rolling, maybe we take Tom's suggestion and provide feedback in writing to what's been proposed.
I just want to point out what. So the real change would come in the requirements for the village, which is right now one space per year.
And to your point, maybe some of the hospitality and the other restaurant uses. Or the employees of those.
Employees.
I think we're just gonna have to think.
Yeah, and Woody brought up, let me just see,
Woody brought up the employee issue at the harbor.
right. And he said, why don't you check it out of town? So I did. And nobody around us, including me, randomly picked Braintree because of the commercial space it has. Nobody has an employee requirement. That is built into the space per square foot use. The exception is Hingham has it for a hotel. I don't even know where Hingham has it. So that's the only, I checked Situate, Norwell, Hingham, and then I randomly just selected Braintree because of so much communities. Nobody regulates employee parking except. It is, the issue in the harbor, the Atlantic redevelopment has the required number of spaces for the uses that were proposed on the site. If they don't have, is employees would strain there, so they lease the place off-site for a year. And the town lots, government island, they're not made available to them, weekend and night, maybe it could be, I don't know. It is a space problem, not a zone. There's no reason for us to all of a sudden require X number of spaces per employee. It's gonna be difficult to do that. It's gonna be difficult for any project to get built. Especially in the village of the harbor. Because
They'd be
we
there
don't.
for 8, 10 hours. That is an issue. You think about it, line up around the harbor, try to revitalize them.
Where are they gonna go? That's the problem with this thing. If we designate that you say, okay, your on-site parking has to have, let's say, 4 or 5 spaces from the village. The Atlantic redevelopment is at the bare minimum of what we need for the uses, for the customers.
So.
And the village, all the village projects that have been built are or proposed at the required number of spaces for the residential units, and on Pleasant Street, it has both. It's the required number for the residential, and the required number for the commercial square footage on site.
for the guests and people coming in for dinner. I'm saying, people that maybe want to go, walk down there, that's gonna be that whole strip taken. That's just
I,
something.
I,
to be
I
cognizant of.
I understand what you're saying, and I want to just give it out, it's a space problem. You still have to put them somewhere, and
probably
we
a
do not have
combination.
the space.
Combination.
I think you're right, Tom, and I think there's some truth.
We have no model to go by on,
We have to make it up.
Employees.
Just don't go ahead.
and the restaurants have a requirement, just so you know, we do have
Hold-
a space.
Well, before we go too down the rabbit hole of space, at space versus parking, I think it's clear that needs more work. So I would suggest maybe we put that to the side and we try to, for those who care deeply about it, which I know is some of us, that we can work on suggestions to Tom on this issue, look at the existing bylaws for all of us who sat on the planning board and zoning on it.
As far as residential, every time I hear that, I
Say no.
say 1.5 spaces. I've heard that, change that, that's, every time I hear 1.5 spaces, I literally cringe.
I think we need to move on though.
And that's only being proposed for the new one.
I get it. It's just still, it's,
And
it's,
it
I agree
doesn't,
with you.
it doesn't alter the model. Originally, we were one space for the.
Two spaces.
I want to move on to the other zoning bylaws, including to try to make some, if maybe there's other places we can all agree and just keep moving and then
Jane,
give
could I
some.
just speak to that space issue
Very quickly.
very quickly? When you allow parking, when somebody says, I need so many spaces for my project, the community answer should be, we need what our community can absorb and is appropriate for them. So in other words, you don't say, because I need extra parking spaces, or I need this, or I need that. We need to focus on the need of the community. That's where I think, and I agree with Paul, we need 2 spaces for every residential, unit. Because there's the demand, and if you allow otherwise, what you're really saying is we're letting the new development take parking spaces that are presently being used by present occupants. And it directly impacts the communities and the homes nearby. And I've seen it happen. I've been a participant in zoning, so that's how I look at it.
Okay, Ellen?
So the solution to this quagmire is just to authorize smaller development. So because we can't create space, we can't create land. I agree with Tom. And so if we're gonna have these bigger developments, and if this is, too little, too late, considering the harbor projects that have already been approved and under construction, then the only way to create more parking is to reduce the footprint of the developments. Because you can't fill in land, you can't fill in wetlands, you can't fill in the harbor. And so that's it. And I think it, and I hear on the parking, it's horrible. On the rare occasion, I'm home during the week, I'm trying to get downtown. 14 circles around South Main Street and Elm Street to find a parking spot. But it's always been that way. When you think of downtown, that strip from across, I don't even know the name of the damn street, from the community center down South Main Street, all the way down to the Red Lion Inn, it's the same. It's the same that it's always been. And there used to be a liquor store, and there used to be a pharmacy, and there used to be more general merchandise, and not so many realtors and not so many banks. And the parking has always been the same.
Just so you know, if we go to 2 spaces per unit in the overlay district, I have to talk to the consultant whether it changes the model. Because they have designated for us 55 acres, a lot of which is wetlands, and certainly it's in almost bare minimum compliance. And going from 1 space per unit, which was the original model that they gave us, and going 1.5, change it.
But that overlay district is farther out at the edge of 3A.
Overlay districts, we're talking about the MBTA Communities Act.
Yeah, that's a different,
We
that's
have
a
a level
totally
of
different thing we're talking about.
To be specific about the OU.
Yeah, the overlay, correct me if I'm wrong, the overlay district we're talking about is
Is the MBTA community.
near, Hingham lumber, that area where there is no parking anyway.
And that's not the one that I was referring to as a disaster.
No,
unless you live in-
so then what the bylaw says, if you add more than one family dwelling. 3A. Part. 1.5 spaces. Make that 2. No problem on 3A for the houses that are on 3A. It's gonna be a problem. And then for the village, it's 1 space per unit. The residential units being developed in the village tend to be small. I don't know how many.
The village is also where we have our parking.
Again, the village
So
does have, there is land, it's not easily developed, it's a piece of ledge, and you have to ramp up to it. And it's behind the teen center, and I was told once that we could get 100 spaces,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
but that's a
I
solution.
think the chair is trying to move us off of parking.
Yeah, let's
I'll,
move on.
I'll change the numbers, but just the impact of it.
We'll take a look and we'll give you some.
In order to keep on time track to the meeting, the board has to consider fully formed articles to refer by next Tuesday.
The week after this.
And then, so I'm just, in order to meet the annual town meeting, that's what we are.
So let's talk about housing choice. I would suggest let's keep the spaces as is for the housing choice, because we just don't have
Agreed.
time to be. Okay,
And we don't end up being.
is everyone okay with that?
And we
Housing
don't-
choice, we're gonna keep the overlay the same.
Yes.
Once we hear back from the consultant, we can move along to the planning board. Article, so,
I'm sorry, hear back from the consultant, if we're keeping it the same.
Yeah, that's not the top.
no, he doesn't have to talk to the,
No,
we're keeping it the same as.
Because it-
Right, no,
Yeah,
you just said
because
that
it's
hear
at
back
the,
from the
because it's at
consultant.
the stage of free screening and.
I'm sorry, the state's
Yeah,
doing
it's
the
at the
screening.
state. I
Okay,
don't wanna
yeah,
mess with the free
yeah, I don't
screening.
wanna mess with that.
Okay. So that one's good to
It's the
go.
village and the harbor.
Okay, so Tom, so let's go through the rest of the articles that we think we need, that are gonna go, that you wanna put before the planning board. Okay, so I think you said the zoning bylaw working group last night voted to table.
We're not gonna discuss frontage. And unless town council wants to rewrite the development impact before the next meeting.
Well, let's talk about the ones you want to move forward with. Are there any others that are non-controversial other than?
Reorganization is non-controversial. And housing, so those are 1 and 2. Consolidating the number of articles would be 1 vote, consolidating the commercial districts would be 3 separate votes, so we each are taking up in 1 minute. That's 1 and 2, 3 is housing choice. Next one would be the border zoning in the village and planet. Again, the town council thinks it's unclear, I don't know, I would think we should do tweaks, because otherwise, it's fairly understandable concept, it's basically creating a step back there. Along the border where the village and the harbor border residential.
Wasn't she saying that we're using definitions that we propose to adopt, but have not yet adopted, so it's predicated on whether we
It's
adopt?
predicated on reorganization, case, and it changes the needs of the district, so it can be easily fixed.
Yeah,
Contingency could be for either side.
so,
All right, that's one. The one that would be probably most debate would be the switch to FAR. But when you see the data that we have, I think people will see the value. Because what we're proposing is essentially creating an FAR that adopts our average house sizes as a point when the data is there. The risk, our current bylaw theoretically has a risk of super large house with 20% lot coverage of the primary house. And our data shows that in no district can we even come close to the 20%, but the risk is there, and the trend is certainly to build out for the maximums, because planning board was recently seeing a 10,000 square foot house and proposing for the 100 square feet. A very big lots, but nevertheless, large houses and closer to 20% lot coverage. So you'd basically be taking away the risk of what our bylaw is now and incorporating a proportional approach to what we have today, what our averages are.
And
Also,
KB hasn't looked at that yet, right?
no, they did.
Oh, they did.
No, actually, no, they didn't look at that. They didn't look at that one, I think it's now because now it has an actual FAR number for each.
I think it would be helpful to present things that have actually been passed by the committee and reviewed by town council.
Well,
Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, we're good. You know, we've been spitting them out to town council as we have passed them. All of these have been passed, except because one member walked out. We did.
It was, the fact is,
Yeah, so town council officially doesn't have the FAR one yet.
okay,
Um,
and town council has found significant causes for her concern.
You can use the next.
Well,
all right, so listen, I don't want to get into a back and forth.
I don't want to get it back, but you know, Gene, the issue here is this is how we've decided we want to do it and we've sent it for review. And if there are issues that have been brought up,
I think let's address the issues. I think that's right, Jack, on the substance, let's try to figure out how
that's
to
what I'm trying
address
to
the
get our
substantive
council to do,
issues.
and that's the
Yeah.
frustrating because we
Yeah.
get around about. And that's what we asked, when you hire an attorney to give you advice, you want to know what it is and not say that I disagree. And
I'm not.
it's frustrating.
What they didn't do was give advice. In my opinion, and if you read the letter, that's the only way you can interpret it. I just said to you, I would like to speak to town council between now and Monday to resolve the issues of Articles 1, 2.
Okay, hold on a second, Tom.
I think we have a little room in the budget now to allow council to participate with the zoning board group as a group, just like productive, if that's.
Yeah, I mean, this is, because there's strong sentiment, if I can have the leeway of saying, I think that the committee would say this. In which I'm very careful not to put words in, but I think that there is a sense that we should have the town council take what our work product is, but once we've agreed to something, and then put it in an overall context. So I do think we're gonna need to get Judge Cutler involved.
You don't have a meeting scheduled yet?
We're meeting next Monday.
So here's what I would suggest. I would like,
I don't want to hear dirty laundry here. But I'll speak to you privately about that,
I would
okay?
like KP to provide us with some red lines or bylaws that we can move, like, to the points that I think Tom and Jack are making in different ways. I think let's use Judge Cutler's expertise to say, okay, you've highlighted the border zone could be more clear, like, can you provide us a specific red line that the ZBWC or whatever the acronym is? The bylaw reorg, I think that's a separate one. That's a big picture issue. The consolidation and renaming of districts. I think we can fix that in time based on her feedback.
The feedback is to do it at the end of the process when it should have been done at the beginning. of the process. You know, part of it is the idea, and this is we might have a snail's pace with all due respect, but town council. There is going to be a town meeting where we need to deal with this in 5-6 articles. Coming at one point, I don't know. Again, I don't want to air dirty laundry or town council in the south, but we need to address these things that have to be done. And sometimes it's going to take 5 or 6 articles.
All right,
to do it.
so I'm gonna ask a question.
The fall's gonna be the same.
Thank you for all the work. Say that we were fine. Job. But how fast and what do we need to work as a team to get this to a perfect world? That's what we do. That just cuts straight down the line. There's been a lot of crisscross and crosstalk. What is the best way to get this wrapped up? So we don't have meetings till 10 o'clock at night.
Speed.
And then we can just move along and get this thing done.
Need speed in response to town council. Need town council to understand that there's more than just housekeeping. And this will from process that's something they don't think is. And I need them to not think they have to come in and reinvent them. And they didn't on housing choice. I was actually quite shocked. We wrote a very simple, clean, neat bylaw and compared to what other communities are writing. And they didn't criticize it.
So how do we actually?
I'm sending an email to Calvin right now. It's reply.
Yeah, let's see how much we can get redlined to you to help, you know, get to the next step to bring to the zoning.
Phone call with different, whatever, however it's.
It strikes me that you're gonna hear this in the phone call, you really need red lines at this point to move it to.
Again, he was constructive criticism.
Well, maybe the red line will do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we've got the funds for it, so let's spend it. You know, I suspect we're gonna hear, just so we should talk about this on the development mitigation bylaw. They're probably gonna say a red line maybe.
Well, I'm at the point of let them rewrite it.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if they want to give us some magic bullets on the current bylaws that we can do this because frankly, the planning board.
Yeah, maybe there's a tweak to the existing bylaw without creating.
No, they say we have inherent authority, we as zoning board to ask for these things and it's a lot easier said than done. The experience we just had with this recent stuff.
Well, you know what,
And
Tom,
we had no teeth to enforce what we really wanted to do. We got a negotiated resolution that was ideal for people.
well, maybe if they give you feedback that they don't have, they can't do this within the time, our time constraints, which may be the reality of their feedback. Ask if there's an interim measure that we could do to redline the existing, I'm guessing it's 12.8 that they think gives us the authority. Section we cited.
And town council was at the subdivision. She knew what we were dealing with and it was offered that we could completely. hammer
It's
the
complicated.
development.
But I'm just trying to provide some
Oh, yeah, no.
solutions to see if we can at least move something along for ATM as we continue to work through something for STM.
It should be, yeah, but just remember, STL. In the fall is already, to finish the cleanup. Parts of the bylaw, and to do initiatives of this. Something on the planet. STM 24 and possibly spring 18 and 25. Still. Great. Not as controversial. The fall is already shaping up this. Minor stuff comes forward, it's even more, minor stuff is more realistically going to be spring.
So here's my suggestion. In terms of taking everything you've given us, with housing choice, we're just waiting for the state screening. Now we're moving, right? On consolidating districts, the border zone, we're asking for council to give us red lines, which it seems like we could get pretty quickly, I would hope and imagine. Parking, we're gonna get feedback to you. On the development impact, that looks like it might be a harder lift to get a brand new reg really quickly. So if there's not time, see if there's tweaks they suggest to 12.8. And then I think we're waiting for you to, for proposals on FAR, unless, did I miss that?
Again, the consensus of what we had the other night was 3-1, right? We didn't, one walked out and we didn't have a vote, so.
Was the opposer the one who walked out, or?
So you can.
Okay, well.
You know, and we had a member on vacation. It was, realistic, he was told us all she was coming back for participation. And it's been suggested that if she suggested it was she resigned, we had a quorum.
I think at 10 o'clock at night, walked out, and for what reason, isn't we should be.
I know what we're focused on, and we still can get it all done, we just need town council to speak.
Okay, so why don't we do that? We'll have this on the agenda for next week, start earlier on these issues. Because, I mean, it's a lot. I don't think we can afford to just ignore Casey's letter. I don't think that's gonna happen. Advisory and others are gonna get it and the regs aren't gonna, unless there are things we can address it, but I think.
Suggesting.
Yeah, no, I'm just speaking out loud to myself, really. Are there any other comments, questions the board has on the plan? Anything that we missed?
Been frustrating. I think there's been a lot of contentious back and forth. And a lot of ego back and forth, and who wants to run anything. It's been very frustrating. I generally stay out of the thing, but I think that this committee needs to stop arguing, get stuff done. And I don't really have any great issues, except that what the select board has gives it instructions should be followed. And let's just get this done.
So are there any changes to instructions that you,
No,
that I missed, just to make
no,
sure I didn't miss anything?
Fine.
Okay.
The other thing is, we are gonna be at the fair, we're gonna have handouts about things and
March
choice
24th.
Sunday. And to the extent you have an agenda tonight, please some of the articles. You saw what happened in the fall, we were dealing with 3 or 4 zoning articles at 11 o'clock, I got to deal with 5 or 6. And
If they take as long as they're taking now.
Well, housing choice may take a while, for people to think, they can be fed into this thing, what is actually legitimate opposition. Can be released. But the FAR was the one that's
You know, what, we're gonna zoom through a town hall and get to some. It's gonna be.
Right.
I'm gonna
That's
accept
something
that
out, we can
because
have
they're-
everything else on this stuff.
Yeah, I know, that's why. We're with you, Tom.
Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom. Okay, Chris,
I
any
think-
new warrant articles?
No, so the warrant is at 25 for the moment based on what's gonna happen with zoning. We've just gone through a big chunk of the system with Gurjay now. We do have the citizens petition. One is confirmed, the other one hasn't come in yet, right? So the water bottle one has till tomorrow. I expect they'll come in, but we haven't seen the issues. That's it for now. We'll start deep diving more next week. Which is something.
Okay. Like more comments?
Oh, my update. Just
Oh,
one-
I'm sorry.
The only thing, I just wanted to point out 2 quick things. One, a reminder that the rec fair is this Sunday at Deer Hill, 1 to 4. Great opportunity to get lots of information on summer programs and community events. And there's gonna be a farmer's market like there was last year. So please, if you have time, swing by, it'd be great, lots of giveaways, lots of good stuff. The other just building item I wanted to highlight, the new generator at the public safety building, Place of Fire, has gone in. So facilities did a great job. They were able to get that installed. There's still some more finishing work to do. It's another concrete element that helps improve our resiliency. So that was done this last week.
On Elm Street or London?
Elm Street, this is all on Elm Street.
So where are everybody to be found? People don't know where to find people. Staff.
What do you mean?
Which staff, Jack?
What's that?
Well, that's part of the problem.
So everyone's still operating at town hall, departments are still operating at town hall, still operating at town hall.
Okay.
So I think once we set schedules a little bit, we'll make sure that everyone can find it. The court, nothing's physically moved, the core stuff is where treasure card is still on the second floor, building's still on the first floor. The sessions are gonna just move down the first floor to the second floor, so everyone will be very.
So it will be important to put it on the website so people will know. Right now, they don't know where to go.
Well, pretty much still with it.
It's all the same. It's
Yeah,
all the
except
same.
for sewer.
What is the number?
Sewer moved, but it's easier to find. That's it.
Okay, select board comments, Chris?
Compliment to Chris Senior and team on a clean audit.
Second.
Jack?
Nothing to say.
Ellen? No comment. I echo Mr. Plex's comments. Thank you, Chris, and your team worked on it. I was pleased to see that Cohasset just became most Irish town in Massachusetts, side of Hanover, right in time for St. Patrick's Day based on census data. And finally, I would like to wish my vice chair happy birthday. I'm sure there's no other place you'd rather be.
No, it's coffee tonight.
Should we say?
All right, we have minutes. Would anyone like to make?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 4th, 2020.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. No topics not reasonably anticipated. Anyone want to move to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.